A 12-hour endurance race at Sebring is a 12-hour sprint race. It's fast, it's bumpy, a lot of traffic, a lot of action. It's just the right length. I love it.
Night racing here is very difficult because the lights mean nothing. It's like just driving out where your lights are shining up into space, so it's very difficult here at night.
We're going to try and win it 3 times in a row, but whatever happens, I will walk away from Sebring with a sense of, or a smile of satisfaction, knowing that I got to live my boyhood dream, and I look forward to the next level, wherever that may be or whatever it may be.
ESPN, the world leader in motorsports coverage, presents Speed World. Hello, everyone, and welcome to an American original. It's the 40th anniversary of this country's oldest sports car race. Contact 12 Hours at Sebring, presented by Acura. I'm Dave Despain at the famed old airport circuit in Sebring, Florida, where a local entrepreneur named Alec Ullman created an oddball sort of race back in 1950. He built it into a world championship with all the famous drivers and cars that name implies. Local and international racing politics threatened the demise of the event, but Sebring endured, it survived, and it lives today in its present incarnation. It is a showcase of the International Motorsports Association with all the factory teams that name implies, and we're going to begin the story right at the head of the grid, where Marty Reed, veteran ESPN pit reporter, is standing by.
Well, thanks, Dave. You know, Nissan has laid claim to the title here at Sebring the last 3 years, going for 4 in a row. And with me is Jeff Brabham, coming off the victory at Miami. Strong performance there for you. Your teammate Chip Robinson has the pole. You're on the outside of row number 1. Derek Daly's looking for number 3 in a row. You're looking for your 3rd win. I mean, you guys could set a lot of records here.
Yeah, there's also a lot of pressure too, you know. But the Nissans are running really well, and this track's been good to us the last 3 or 4 years. So, you know, we're looking forward to a good race. You know, we have a good chance, and you know, as long as we stay out of trouble, who knows, maybe we could do all those records, but it's still 12 hours away from that right now.
Your team has done very well in the 12-hour, not so good in the 24 at Daytona, for example, but what's the difference? I mean, this is almost like a long sprint race, isn't it?
Well, it is. You know, we haven't been running these cars at Daytona lately, and you know, we had we were finished 2nd at Daytona 2 years ago, and we were leading the race this year when we broke. So, you know, those things can happen to anybody. And, you know, the cars are very reliable. We very rarely ever not finish races these days, and this includes this one here. So it's just good preparation and a very strong car.
Who's the biggest threat that you've seen this weekend?
I think the Toyotas are going to be strong. You know, the Jaguar's going to drone around all day, so if anybody has any problems, you know, they're going to be there to take advantage of it. You know, some of the Porsches are going very fast, and, you know, it's going to be a real dogfight between Chip and myself. So, you know, I think the guy who has the least amount of problems is the guy who's going to win the race.
Well, it's almost time to put your helmet on, go to work. We'll watch you out there. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us. Good luck.
All right, thanks a lot.
Camel Lights is also going to be running here today. Rick DeBrule is back with Parker Johnstone, who's on the pole in lights.
Well, Marty, for the last year or so, Parker Johnstone and the Acura have indeed been dominating the lights. This weekend they're on the pole, but you're not really happy with the setup on the car. You're a little worried, in fact.
Well, that's right. Dan Marvin and I, and led by Doug Peterson and Don Erb on the Acura BF Goodrich Comtech team, decided to put as little time on the car this weekend as possible. We showed up for qualifying yesterday, and although I was able to do a quick lap and get the pole, I wasn't real happy with the setup. We made some very small changes for the warm-up this morning. The car feels really good. That NSX motor is pulling real strong, and we're gonna go with it the way it is and keep our fingers crossed.
You guys have 2 cars in this particular race. Is that an insurance?
Well, it sure is. We've got Costas Los and Rogero Melgrati in the 2nd car. And although you might think we might sprint one car and keep the other car fairly conservative to ensure a finish, what we're doing is treating it as 2 separate teams. So both cars are going to be out there racing for the checkered flag. Hopefully, if one of us fails, the other one will get there. But the best solution would be to have those Acura BF Goodrich Comtech cars come in 1st and 2nd.
Parker Johnstone, an optimistic man here at Sebring. As they get ready to start the race, we're still a few minutes away. Let's go back upstairs to Dave Despain.
Thank you very much, guys. 85,000 12,000 fans and Bill Adam join us here for this telecast. Bill's a former class winner at Sebring, and in 1983, this guy had a 3-lap lead when his car came to a smoking halt. You know how tough it is to win this race, and that difficulty is part of the magnetism of the Sebring 12-hour.
Without question it is. That it hurt more so than any other event, losing that, because I wanted so badly to win this race, but a lot of people do want to win it. Back when I first started learning and loving sports car racing, it became very evident to me that there were a couple of major events in the world. One was Le Mans, the other was Sebring. There is no comparison to Sebring in the U.S. endurance circuit. And to win here has this wonderful magic about it. It's something you never forget, but something you always try for. Daytona may be work, but Sebring is fun. It beats the devil out of your car, but what a race to win.
And it is a special fun for the fans who have thronged into this place. This is a true rite of spring in Florida. And we're going to be back to cover all of the action here from Sebring Airport. ESPN Speed World's coverage of the 12 hours of Sebring is brought to you by today's Contact. 12 hours stronger than your miserable cold. By Acura Automobiles. Experience precision-crafted performance. And by Pennzoil, the motor oil that outperforms any leading motor oil against viscosity breakdown. We could not ask for a nicer day at Sebring. In contrast, if you recall, to a year ago when we were here in the rain. And boy, did we have rain. Right now, we have a delay, though, in the start of the race. And the reason for that is a problem out on the racetrack that we'll get an update on in a moment. Here is the real focal point, the field of cars for what we called an American original at the top. And the huge international involvement in this race is very much a part of the story. Here is the problem that has delayed the start. Bill, they're doing some racetrack maintenance out there that I presume must be the result of this morning's preliminary event.
Yeah, I think this is maybe a case of the cars finally get to pay it back. All these years, the track really does take a tremendous toll on cars, and a car that finishes this race literally has to be gone through and most of the components thrown away. It's that hard on them. So maybe this is finally it, that the good wide tires and the high downforces are actually chewing up parts of the track. They are trying at this point to look for some sort of a temporary patch situation, and that's very difficult. Again, because of the width of these tires and the side loadings, they can tear up virtually any patch immediately to try and get something that's going to stay there and remain both safe and constant for the duration of the race. It's a real challenge for these people right now, and they're taking a good close look.
The roughness of the racetrack alludes to the whole issue of endurance and survival, and I think one of the big questions is whether or not Marty Reed's voice will in fact survive the 12 hours. We'll get a progress report on that as we turn our attention to another of the stories that will follow here. The racing within the race. 4 classes of competition in all here today. In addition to the overall victory, individual drivers will be battling for class honors, and Marty has more on that.
Yeah, I'm doing my impersonation of Froggy from the Little Rascals, guys. You know, I love the fact that you give me the assignment of doing the class descriptions. I mean, it's easier talking about nuclear physics, but let's try and put it into perspective this way. GTP, the prototypes, are anywhere from 6.5 liter normally aspirated engines to anything less than that with a turbocharger. They'll generate about 700 horsepower. Now we get into the Camel Lights category. They look an awful lot like the GTP cars, but they are under 3.4 liters in displacement, and they also do not allow turbocharging. Then you get into the GTS. This is the super sleek sedans behind us, and they can run turbochargers over 3 liters in power. Then you get to GTU, which is under 3 liters in power. Now, does that get confusing for you? Try and simplify it this way. Imagine the letters P, L, S, and U. GTP for power, the most powerful cars out here. The Camel Lights, they look like the GTP cars, but they have less power. The GTS, the sleek, sassy production sedans. And no offense to our GTU compatriots, but they are the least fast cars out here, the slowest as you may, and so we're underpowering them. Darren Brassfield is the current points leader in GTS. Obviously, you're not going to be starting this race. One of the things I'm surprised at, Ford is not here, and they dominated these events over the years, the 12 and the 24-hour races.
Yeah, Jack Roush has elected not to run any road races this year and focus on his NASCAR program. The Nissans, though, are tough. I mean, they're looking for their first win,
And you know, if they've done all their homework, and we're hoping that we can keep our cars, you know, together and hopefully beat them.
Well, Darren, you're leading in the points in the Oldsmobile, and you've made some changes to this Trans Am car, because really this is not what you would consider a GTS sedan right now.
No, it isn't. We've put a, you know, bigger wing on the back of it and bigger motor, and kept the weight about the same as a Trans Am car. We switched from Goodyear's to BF Goodrich tires, and we feel that's a little bit of improvement. So the only thing left to do now is run 12 hours and see where we end up.
Well, we'll see you when you get dressed in that driver's uniform. I like the laid-back look. It looks good on you. Rick DeBrule, what are you up to?
Well, we're back here talking about the GTU division. As you just said, the cars that are a little bit slower, but by no means slow, don't get me wrong. You're looking at one of the cars that is one of the fastest cars, one of the Leitzinger Racing team cars. Leitzinger Racing has won this race for the last 2 years. Bob Leitzinger, the owner of the team, has won it himself last year. And this is more than just team pride, though. There's a lot of family pride at stake.
Oh, yes. My sons, Chuck Kurtz and Butch Leitzinger, co-driving with me. In fact, they'll probably drive the whole race in 95 if we don't have any problems. And then we have David Lauren and John Paul in the 96 car.
Now, you guys obviously dominating the field at this point in time. Is it that easy to dominate during the entire 12 hours?
12 hours is entirely different, and I'd have to classify Sebring as the toughest. I mean, 12 hours here is a lot worse than 24 hours at Daytona or any place else that I've been.
Is it because the track is so brutal?
Yes, it just beats a driver to death. It's so rough. You have so many different surfaces, and the transitions from one to the other are not smooth.
Okay, Bob Leitzinger standing by, getting ready to go down here as they prepare for the 12 hours of Sebring.
Thank you, guys. An incredible sense of excitement surrounds the start of this event, Bill, and I think it's made much more special by the aura of history. 40 years is a long time for anything to survive.
It sure is, and it is, like I said earlier, it's a magical event. This is the event to win of the year. Where Miami may have some sort of a special feeling as a sprint race, Sebring is something that you feel has been here forever. You look at the people that have won in the past and the cars that have won. This is just, it's an incredible, sensational happening that's taking place.
Let's make the note that while the Nissans are on the pole, this was the fastest qualifying car. The pole qualifying session ran in the rain. Once the track dried, Juan Manuel Fangio, whose uncle won this race twice, went out and broke the track record with the fastest qualifying lap. So even though he's not starting at the front of the field, he was the fastest car here. We'll be back to update you on the progress with the track repairs and get this race underway. Stay tuned. Back at Sebring, the contact, 12 hours of Sebring presented by Acura. A record pole speed and anticipated record crowd gathered. This has the sense of history with 39 years in the past, the 40th anniversary celebration. One more bump in this rugged old racetrack. They've said, well, this is about as much as we can do with turn 14. Let's turn them loose. I suspect they won't notice a heck of a lot of difference. Let's go trackside to Marty Reed.
Well, Gene Page with Smith Klein Beecham is with me, and the significance of the contact 12 hours of Sebring?
Yes, we at Smith Klein Beecham and the Contact brand are really excited about being able to sponsor the race today. It's a natural time for the Contact brand being the 12-hour contact relief.
And the gentleman who is going to give the famous command here for the 40th anniversary is Bob Hewitt. Bob, it's your turn.
Drivers, start your engines.
Do it. Do it. Go ahead, do it. Hit it. All right, start the engine. Stop. Stop, stop, stop. All right, the motors have been fired, Al Robinson, which means we're just moments away from the start. And again, in that qualifying session where they locked in the top four, it was held in not certainly the best of conditions. The track very, very damp. Separating the first two cars 1/1000th of a second. Jeff Rapp turned his lap 2 laps from the finish. He stopped on
and so the engines come to life. Parker Johnstone, the pole sitter in the GT Light division, is going to take us on a tour of this place. The engine's fired, and Parker mentioned earlier he was having a little handling problems, and I think we may see evidence of this onboard camera lap, a lap at Sebring.
On the front straight, we're already into fourth gear, approaching 125 miles an hour into a fast, slinging left-hand turn. Look at the blind corner. All you can see is that wall, and it feeds out right up to the edge of the grass. Accelerate down this little straight, but up ahead, an area of very, very heavy braking, down into third gear, tight for an apex, but don't let the car out too far, because look how we got to go back and forth here. This feeds us onto one of the most critical passing areas of the track. Around this long right-hand corner, we're fourth gear flat out. We'll actually grab fifth gear right about here. That's it. We're heading down towards the hairpin at 150 miles an hour, and hold your braking as long as possible. Heavy on the brakes and all the way down to first gear. Feed it in tight.
And this is the original Sebring hairpin. Been there since day one.
It's the one that all the famous names have gone around, and a lot of famous names have spun at. Now Parker's on a straight heading up to some S's. Into the right here. Whoa. Almost got a little bit of a left-hand corner out of a right hand there.
He's giving that onboard camera a pretty good ride here. Look, he's trying to push Moretti out of the way.
Great ride, and this is a problem for the light drivers. These cars go through the corners very quickly. You can see he does catch Moretti's Porsche through this section, but of course doesn't have the horsepower. Little wave of the hand as he passes John Pirro into a tight 90 degree to the right. Hard on the power, except Parker's keeping over to the right. He has noticed something, and he's keeping his car deliberately on the right-hand side. There is the reason. A faster GT prototype car, one of these 700-800 horsepower cars, blows by us, and we're getting into the high-speed section of this track. Now look at the expanse of track out here. It's very difficult to pick out landmarks. You can't tell where it is. And at night, this gets even worse. On the back straight, we'll hit speeds of over 170 miles an hour. Down here, and look, once again, you can't pick out any landmarks at all. The final corner that's facing us is a long corner, and watch the difficulty faced by the driver. Now look for a spot. Where do you start your turn in? He's looking just about underneath the bridge. He's feeding on power, but you're still turning and right to the edge of the track. This will complete our lap at the Sebring Racecourse.
And quite a lap indeed with Parker Johnstone and the Acura. The field out on the warm-up lap. The Nissans at the head of the class, first and second. We'll be back to take a look at the complete starting lineup from Sebring right after this.
The Suzuki Katana 600. It cranks even before you turn it on. The winningest battery in NASCAR isn't a special racing battery. It's exactly the same battery you can buy for your car at Sears. Sears Die Hard, the battery that performs 3 times better than industry standards. Die Hard, more power when you need it most. After all, who's gonna back you better than Sears?
He breaks a tackle into 5, slides into second, rounds the backstretch, dribbles between the legs, shreds the mogul, catches air, skates past center right, serves an ace, connects.
The Suzuki Dual Sport 350S, the ultimate cross trainer.
And what a ride!
A class field of sports cars working their way down toward the start of the contact. 12 hours of Sebring, the 40th anniversary of the race down here in South Florida, surrounded by the orange groves. Let's go to the die-hard starting grid. On the pole, Chip Robinson, co-driver Bob Earl, Jeff Brabham, and Derek Daly, the teammates in the Nissans alongside. Nissan dominating row 1. In row 2, starting third, will be Perry McCarthy and Les Delano, flanked by the Porsche of Winter, Schneider, and Jelinski. We go to row 3, and there we find the fastest car in the field, Fangio, with his teammate Wallace, P.J. Jones, and Moran, and the other Toyota alongside. In row 4, the Porsche of Moretti, Segala, and Larari, and Gary Brabham scheduled to start outside. Car number 11 has been scratched, and that is one of the Nissans. They won't bother to start it. Then comes the Jaguar, Davy Jones, the series leader, with David Brabham. It's a family reunion for the Brabhams here. Taylor Fuller and Migaud in the Chevrolet-powered entry, starting inside row 6, and then comes the lights pole sitter Parker Johnstone, who will team today with Marvin and Peterson. Looking down through the rest of the field, his teammate, by the way, starting in the inside of row 7. We'll run down the complete starting lineup for you here, including the 4 classes that will do battle, and obviously to win your class at Sebring, wherever you are in the overall standings, is a great feather in the cap. Bill, you know that. You won GTO here one year.
Yeah, again, I do not think there is any race in the endurance series of North American racing that has the prestige to match Sebring. This has always been magic here. You have to have Sebring to be able to claim to be a great driver. It's something that it demands a great deal of not only desire to win and good car preparation, but I think tremendous, I don't even know how to put it, David. It's a strength, because there are times in this race that you want to quit. The beating that you and your car together are taking is so bad, you are ready to give up. You've got to keep going, and when you finish this race, you're sore, you hurt.
We will come down for the start, ladies and gentlemen. You'll see it live here on ESPN. We'll be with you for the first hour, then take a break, be back for another hour. The Nissans will head the field. The green flag flies for the 40th time. Sebring is underway.
Now look at that Porsche trying to slot up there inside the track. Toyota's into 4th place just on the outside of the Porsche, and I think this may be a secret of what's going to happen during the race. Watch the Toyota press. The number 98 car is already up there to 2nd place under late braking. He is determined to take the lead, and I think what might happen is that Toyota may send one Rabbit car out. They can afford to have one car perhaps break down and force the Nissans to brake. They are justifiably worried the Nissans are so strong, so fast. The only way to beat them is maybe to break them.
Strategy, of course, is the key issue. Jumping out to the early lead. The pole-sitting Nissan of Chip Robinson, his teammate falling back to 3rd as P.J. Jones wedges the Toyota into 2nd spot and sets up what many think will be the slug out at the head of the field. Toyota versus Nissan. The Jag will not contest the pace here for reasons we'll get to later, but that Porsche running 4th, the Bernd Schneider, as the starting driver, will probably get up there and mix it up big time. They're calling this guy the next Punch Stuck.
Wow, he is brilliant. He is incredibly fast in the car, and I think this may be one of the stories of our race today, is the fact that this Porsche has gone so quickly all through the qualifying and practice sessions. Porsche people and a lot of race fans, and even myself included, as we're on board with Parker Johnstone in the Acura, just going around the track. Look at some of the pounding here in his hands on that steering wheel as they're going around Sebring. Watch up ahead, this fast left-hander, and just look at the shock right in the middle of this corner.
Yes, there is a handling problem on the car, but that is not what creates the bumping and banging. We go back up to the head of the field. That was Parker Johnstone.
Now look at the Toyota, Dave.
Toyota move for the lead. Will he get it? Yeah,
yes.
Easily. Up the inside goes one of the...
And look at the Nissan trying to repass him back on the inside. He can't do it.
This is exactly what many people thought, including Dan Gurney, who manages that Toyota team. He told me yesterday, we know we can finish endurance races now. We did it at Daytona. We're going to go out and press the Nissans. We're going to go out and try to break them. P.J. Jones of Torrance, California, goes out as the Rabbit here. And let's go down trackside to Rick DeBrule.
The car is doing extremely well, especially when you consider what kind of morning it had. They had an oil leak in the car this morning. As a result, they changed the engine in the final hour just before the race. Out on the grid, they were making a few final checks. They weren't too sure about it, but now it appears to be all together and doing about as well as you could ask for.
Water leaks were a problem for that car at Daytona. An oil leak caused them a problem here this morning, but they have no problem right now. They've changed the engine, and the car is leading. Robinson, the 4-time pole sitter for this race, loves Sebring. Lost it a year ago in the final hour due to an electrical problem to his teammate, who now trails him, Jeff Brabham, the series champion. The Nissan 2nd and 3rd and losing ground as the Toyota sets the pace out front. There's a sign that I saw yesterday in the infield, anybody but Nissan, and one of the track officers here said that the natives are restless. Nissan has won 3 in a row. They're ready for somebody else to come home a winner. Perhaps it'll be Toyota based on, what, a lap and a half, 2 laps of action that we've seen here so far. It is live. It is Sebring. It is the 40th anniversary party of a great race, and we're glad you're here to be with us on ESPN. We'll be right back. We're back at Sebring, where the Nissans are deployed in 2nd and 3rd spot behind the leading Toyota of P.J. Jones. And here you see the interval. There's Jones flashing by. Here come the Nissans very early in a long race. The Nissans know that they have the track record here. The Toyota will, of course, have to prove that it can go the distance on this racetrack. You're riding now in the Chevy-powered Spice, the Appleby entry. And we go back and pick up the battle, and just what we expected in GTS. It's Nissan versus Oldsmobile, and here they run right together. This is the sedan division, the full-bodied cars, and these two manufacturers are seriously committed to that division, Bill.
Very much so. I think this will be one of the very interesting spectacles to watch today, because, and again, for the viewers, even though these cars look like a street car, they are not. They are pure racing cars, tube frame, in some case monocoque chassis. Very high horsepower cars. The battle will take place between the Nissan Nissan, which has a turbocharged engine exactly the same as what the GTP car runs, along with the Oldsmobile, which basically has an engine like what the GTP spices. Now here's the leader in the pits.
That's a big problem. Certainly not a planned stop at this juncture. The car that had the oil leak problem and the engine swap this morning, Dan Gurney's Toyota team is on pit road. Let's go to Rick DeBrule.
Dave, earlier you were talking about the water problems they were having this weekend. It looked like that may be the problem here. They have an overheating problem. They brought them in. They're pulling the cowling off the back. They're going to go to work, but obviously it's going to put a dent in their day. Although, once again, you got to remember, this is a 12-hour event. If they can fix whatever's wrong, there's still a lot of time to make up.
Looks like Daytona all over again. That car made a lot of pit stops at Daytona. They have onboard telemetry that enables them to monitor all the systems on the car, and it was very valuable at Daytona because they kept a close eye on the temperature gauge, and as it began to climb, said, okay, now it's time to bring it in and put more water in it. An overheating problem as the Toyota jumped out to take the early lead. The Charger was P.J. Jones, but he has charged onto pit road, and just one more indication of the mechanical difficulty at Sebring. You try to prepare for this race, you can't anticipate everything that might go wrong.
No, and again, this is a scene just reminiscent of 1983 that you talked about with Jaguar. That's what put us out of the race when we lost a head gasket. The temperatures here this morning really are very, very good for racing. We're at mid-70 degrees right now, but look at the steam, look at the water coming out. That look, in fact, it is water. It's coming out of that pipe right there. Not a good sign at all. I think we've got a cracked cylinder head.
There is a second Toyota, of course, and we'll update the situation on this one, but this is the car that apparently was sent out as the Rabbit to try to break the Nissans, and the Rabbit did not have very long legs. Here is the leader, Chip Robinson, the pole sitter, flashing by one of the GTU cars here and demonstrating the speed differential that exists between these tremendously powerful, fully downforced aerodynamic P cars up the front straightaway. The man who has been on the pole 4 years in a row for this race, but Chip's driving with a broken rib, mysteriously suffered while racing at Miami, and came out of the car with a cracked rib. He said it hurts. It feels exactly like you would expect a cracked rib to feel. And the fastest lap he's run here was 1 minute and 54 seconds, which is 5 seconds off the pace of the Toyota. So this is a hurting young man, although right now he appears to be having no problems as he negotiates his way through the lap traffic, obviously buoyed by the fact that the Toyota has gone to the sidelines. And his teammate Brabham is stuck in the sandwich back there. How'd you like to be threading that needle? That's fun.
Well, as a matter of fact, I wouldn't mind threading that needle right now. This is a great fun at this point. Notice how the Porsche has closed right up on Jeff, though, partly because of all of that traffic. Jeff is very smart. He will not take any chances right now where a driver of less experience may put his car in a precarious position. He is keeping in mind, as they're getting around a very slow car right there, that there are 11 plus hours to go. So don't risk the vehicle at this point. Just let things settle down. In the first 2 or 3 hours of this race, a lot of vehicles will fall out. Then you can try and charge. There's number 58 has gone off backwards, little skid marks there, and he's able to he's rejoining the race without any problem at all. The car looks fine.
Sam Shalala, I believe, at the wheel of that Pro Technic Porsche 911. And he may have dinged it up a little bit, but it doesn't look bad. He's coming quickly back to racing speed, and I continue to be intrigued by that Porsche that lurks back there in third spot as we watch the leader in heavy traffic and coming down through the old airport runway sections of this racetrack. See the bump, see the bounce. Let's find out more on that Toyota story. Rick DeBrule is with the man who brought the car on pit road.
Well, P.J. Jones, unfortunately, sitting on the wall. They're going to continue working on the car. Overheating?
Yeah, we had to do a last-minute motor change between the warm-up and the race. It was just an unfortunate incident. We didn't get any time on this motor, and going out and running hard at the beginning probably didn't do it any good. But there was no other choice we had, and there's something wrong with it. We don't know what it is, but it's unfortunate for Toyota and Dan Gurney. We had such a good run going. We got the Nissans in the first lap, and we were just on a nice, comfortable pace.
They're pushing it behind the wall, but they're going to continue working on it.
Yeah, we're going to take a look at it and see if we can fix it, but I don't know what the situation's going to be.
Bear in mind a couple of things. Here's another car coming to a stop. That is Uli Beery with one of the lights cars. That is the Ford Alba of Beery Racing, the Canadian team, with obvious mechanical difficulties and trying to make its way to pit road. Wanted to make the point that the Toyota, which is going behind the wall, is not the fastest Toyota. The fastest Toyota is, in fact, the fastest car in the race, and it is still out there. That is Juan Manuel Fangio. Chip Robinson leads at his favorite racetrack. The 12 Hours of Sebring is off to a blistering start, and a record crowd anticipated. We'll be back with more. We're back at Sebring. You're riding with Parker Johnstone, the leader of the Camel Lights division here. Believe it or not everybody in Florida is fascinated by racing. There are some Major League Baseball teams down here for spring training. We're going to kick it off on ESPN with the Pirates versus the Twins coming up at 1 o'clock. One of 6 spring training games you'll see here. Opening day, triple header, April 6th. All the baseball fans in America are just about as excited about that as we are about the 12 Hours of Sebring. And, of course, you'll be seeing that right here on ESPN. Here come the Nissans up the front straightaway, and do my eyes deceive me, Mr. Adam, or has the interval shrunk a bit there?
Yes, it has. Jeff has closed up quite a bit, and maybe he's decided to start running to his game plan at this point. The gap between these cars really grew from going through traffic. And again, Jeff is being very cautious at this point, does not want to take the chance of coming into contact with one of these slower vehicles, so is being very aware of where the car is and what he might do. You try and work with probabilities at this point. You think the guy may swerve left, may swerve right. What's he going to do? And you try and avoid that as much as possible. But notice each lap, Jeff does get a little bit closer. Chip just put on his headlights here as we get a nice view of him there. Very, very nice guy, Chip. Chip put his headlights on primarily to warn some of these slower cars to stay out of his way. He's now perhaps running into a little bit of problem with drivers drifting into his way. If the headlights give him, just a slight edge in getting through traffic cleanly, then it's a bonus for him. He also does not want to risk damaging one of these cars through a fluke accident.
And let's note that in pulling away from in closing on his teammate, that Brabham was also able to pull away from that Porsche being piloted by Bernd Schneider here. We're inside the Chevy Spice going through an onboard ride around Sebring. It's interesting that up front, that Porsche running in 3rd spot represents technology fully a decade old. The Spice chassis, of course, is one of the emerging powerhouses in world sports car racing, and this one has a Chevy engine, which makes all of the American proponents very happy and excited. And so the Appleby car comes out onto the straightaway. All of this is new racetrack that's been built in the last few years. Much of it is asphalt, concrete pads in the corners, as you see, and it's really a memory of what used to be at Sebring, but they still run the old airport runways, and we'll see some of those. Here is the number 49 car. That is a lead position battle right there, because Parker Johnstone is in a position fight with Fermin Vélez, the Spaniard who is driving the Buick Kudzu with the wild paint job, and they're beginning to swap the lead back and forth here in the race for Camel Lights. And I'm not sure that Fermin Vélez might not be the most dangerous man you could be in a street fight with race cars. This guy is a wild man. He's the guy who talks about taking turn 1 here wide open.
That's right. Fermin has always been extremely fast in any car he gets into, and I think certainly that Parker Johnstone will look at him as the most serious competitor. Back inside this Chevrolet Spice right now. This on the front straight. Just look at the view. You will just look over at your pits for a brief second and then start concentrating up ahead again. It's going to be a hard left-hand corner here, very, very quick.
This is the corner Vélez talks about taking wide open. I wonder.
Oh, boy. Well, anybody can take it wide open once, but you may not be around to go the second lap.
I guess it depends on what you're driving, too, because now we're back inside the Acura, and as you can see, there is no longer a car in front, but Vélez had indeed taken the lead from Parker Johnstone, and recall what he said about the handling problems on the car. They are not fully confident in their setup here, and I don't know, Bill. I mean, how much of that is just pre-race talk? How much is that is a psych job on the other guys?
I think you do try and play games like that, definitely. Look at Vélez. He is right up on the tail of Parker now. He will try and occupy Parker's mirrors as much as possible. Try and make Parker make one of those errors that you always hope your competition will make, but you hope you don't make it. Interesting cars. One is a Spice that is powered by the Acura motor. The car that Vélez is driving is powered by a Buick engine. Good old V6 Buick. They have given Buick a little more displacement this year, and apparently that has helped them tremendously. The cylinder head design they had was not working on the displacement that they were running with. And they say that even though the displacement increase has not given them a great deal more horsepower, it's a much more efficient motor because the head now can work properly. Also, the leading car is on BF Goodrich tires. Velez is on Goodyear's. So we have lots of battles just in this little two-car race right here.
And this little two-car race is the battle for 10th overall, which gives you an idea of where they stand relative to the rest of the field. The first 9 positions occupied, of course, by the bigger and faster GTP machines. And one other note about Velez, his comment before the race was, we have to be gentle with the engine, but they certainly went out fast to do battle with the Acura here and to maintain that position fight and try to force the Johnstone entry into the bottle. This is the view that Parker Johnstone sees as he goes around this famed old racing circuit where world championships have been decided over the years, through the corner where they had the problem with the patch, and I suspect, as I said, that those guys aren't even noticing it. And out onto the old airport runways. This place was actually a bomber base. They took World War II bombers and stored them on these very runways. When Alec Ullman took a look at it and said this would be a great place for a sports car race, and the rest, as they say, is history. From B-17s to race cars, Robinson and Brabham run up front. We'll be right back. We're back at Sebring, the contact. 12 hours of Sebring. This will get your blood up. 4-driver battle for the lead. They're in the process of overlapping the battle for the GTS lead. And further back in the field, a tremendous fight for the lead position in the GT lights. This is what it looks like from the inside of one of these automobiles as they wind around 17 turns. 3.7 miles, the racetrack distance. Here is the leader, Chip Robinson. Second place belongs to his teammate, Jeff Brabham. Brabham has run him down from an interval of 3 or 4 seconds to perhaps 50 yards on the racetrack. Then as they come down the straightaway, you'll see the Toyota running in 3rd spot. It was the fastest car in qualifying. Juan Manuel Fangio following in the footsteps of his famous uncle. And here behind him is Bernd Schneider. He is 4th in a Porsche. 2 Nissans, a Toyota, a Porsche. The front 4 will be within the distance of the front straightaway in the early laps, heck, a quarter of the straightaway. This is a great position battle. This is exciting stuff.
Oh, it's just getting better every lap, too. We have a wonderful display of a bunch of different vehicles here. The 2 leading Nissans are V6 turbos. The Toyota running in 3rd place is a smaller motor. Instead of being a 3-liter V6 like this car is, it has a 2-liter 4-cylinder, but is allowed to run a lighter weight. Now again, the car following that, a 3-liter Porsche, a flat 6. So all kinds of engine designs, and of course, not too far behind these fellas, we've got a 6.5-liter Chevrolet motor, we've got a 6.5-liter V12 Jaguar engine, so a great equalization of the formulas in this racing.
And truly world cars. I mean, there's a lot of talk right now about Japanese versus American and all the rest of that, but when you think about these Nissans, Japanese technology and American ingenuity side by side down the straightaway. The Nissans are built and maintained in America by a predominantly American race team, and they view themselves very much as part of the American racing scene. And so here they come, battling basically side by side. Here is the Spice once again. Now this is the Chevy-powered machine, but it's in a British chassis. And I think it's all part of what we will eventually see as world cars. The issue of where cars are built will be much less an issue 10 years from now than it is right now.
I think so too. Now here's back the leaders. Look at Chip is continuing to run with the lights on, trying to get people out of his way as quickly as possible. And look at Jeff. He's just kind of hanging back there, the wily old champion. Onto the back straight. They are just closing up on one of the Acuras, and look at them blow by. There is the difference. That's what 700 horsepower does down this long straight.
The traffic problem, the moving chicane there that they got to dart inside, although in the slower driver's credit, he moves just a bit offline and leaves the fast line for the faster cars, watches his mirrors, and they come by clean. Robinson with the headlights on, your pole sitter, and he's the man who has the broken rib as he tries to hold off his teammate. And I have to wonder if that's an issue right now, if he might not, in fact, at some point let Brabham through, particularly with the Toyota closing up like that. Let's get a little more lead. Let's take a listen to these cars, because I think half the fun, certainly for the 85,000 fans here, a lot of whom can't see the entire racetrack, hearing the cars is one of the reasons to come out for this rite of spring. Give a listen to it. Tremendous variety of your trackside. Here's what it sounds like inside the car. Watch the tap over the right side. And we go back to the lead cars up front, and Robinson continues to stand the gap. You wonder how hard Brabham is pressing. He's shown him the nose a couple of times and then let him maintain the lead. Keep in mind that twice Robinson has gone to the series finale with a chance to win the title, but both times Brabham came away with the crown. I believe we can go trackside now and perhaps find a little bit more about the strategic elements of this race. That's the key, figuring out how to win it. What you got, Rick?
Well, we were just talking with Kaz Kasman, the Nissan Motorsports manager. I asked, is there a team strategy? He says no. He says they're two big boys. They know how to run the race. Their goal is to go out and run pretty hard. And perhaps it was a little bit of a dig, but his last comments were, besides, they're not going that fast.
I think they know everybody's tuned in to ESPN following the race. I'm going to hear those comments. They are going indeed much slower than they qualified and at a pace which they think they can sustain for 12 hours, and that's the key. These are the Nissan Sprint cars, and one of the beauties of these automobiles is their proven ability to run a sprint-like pace for long distances. They can go 12 hours. They will not go 24 hours, and that's the reason they run a car in a different configuration at the 24 hours of Daytona, and they haven't had nearly the success there. The wild paint job of Fermin Velez now heads this pack. They're about to go a lap down. The lights cars under pressure from the B cars. There is now the second place car, and that is Parker Johnstone, the pole sitter. But how about that paint job on that lead light?
It's a spectacular job, and it's one that was done by a very famous motorsport artist, Randy Owens, who does beautiful work. Look from an inside viewpoint. Parker watches the tail of the Nissan. Now watch leaving this corner. Watch the Toyota's acceleration as we come out of this corner. Goodbye. That's the difference, going from the 400-plus horsepower of the Acura to the 700-plus horsepower of the Toyota.
When Juan Manuel puts his foot down, that car does respond.
Oh, boy.
Battle within a battle, remember. Now, the fast cars that you're seeing moving out onto the straightaway there are the GTP machines with their bigger, more powerful engines. The cars they've gone around, as we see Chip Robinson, the leader, with the broken rib, are the GT Lights cars. The GT Lights just getting flickering glimpses of them there, as they will quickly see this battle disappear off into the sunset, and they'll continue their own position fight in GT Lights. The Toyota through in third spot. Then now let's see, Schneider will pass undoubtedly and take fourth as they go down the straightaway. He is fourth and will pass the Lights cars and drop them fully a lap behind the lead pack. Great action early on here at Sebring as the lead quartet run together, and the question with three different manufacturers up front, who's got the stuff to stick around and do this for 12 long hours? The Nissan gap, perhaps 4 to 5 car lengths as we work our way through hour one. We'll be back with more from Sebring. We're back at Sebring. The Nissans run nose to tail. The Toyota in hot pursuit in the battle up front at this 40th anniversary celebration. We'll mention it once and then not mention it again. Jeff Brabham is also celebrating his 40th birthday this weekend. He would love to give himself a birthday present. He does not love the idea of being 40, and he's on the inside and will take the lead as they go to turn one. Robinson will not contest it. You don't fight that hard with your teammate. Question is, what will he do with that Toyota behind him?
Yeah, I think that might be Chip's way of saying happy birthday, but he's not going to extend the wishes to Toyota. That is for sure. Now, the 83, you may have seen a little bit of smoke coming out of the pipe there. That is not a problem. These cars, again, they're a turbocharged V6 engine. They run with a very sophisticated engine management system. And sometimes they run a rich condition to try and offset the tremendous temperatures that are built up. Watch the Toyota up the inside here. He may take a shot. There he is. He's down the inside. Got him under braking cleanly at the hairpin.
Fangio moving through to take over the runner-up spot. Robinson again not really contesting the position and letting him through, and I think Robinson may be feeling the effects of that broken rib. If you've ever had a broken rib, you know what it feels like. It's difficult to breathe, much less drive one of these race cars that create incredible amounts of G-forces, particularly in the corners. The downforce makes them stick to the racetrack, and Robinson, as you can see, is quickly losing ground to what will now be the new multi-brand battle for the lead. We go back inside Parker Johnstone's automobile, right up to the rear deck of Furman Velez, and up alongside, and nope, nothing there. Great position, fight, and fun to watch it from the in-car camera. Oh, that's what the driver really sees.
Yeah, I wish I was seeing her. I mean, I like working with you, David, but I would really enjoy that view a lot more. This is fun for Parker out there right now, playing with Furman, because they're both very talented drivers. When you get with another man who you respect and trust totally, it does become fun, and you lose a sense of time. You can spend 1 or 2 hours in a car where normally it's very fatiguing. If it's like this, your time just flies by. You're not aware of it. Again, a great battle. We've got two different types of engines here, the multi-cam V6 Acura motor versus the old pushrod V6 Buick, as he comes right up. Look at how tight he is to the wall here. He's right down the inside on the left of that green car that we just lost in the picture.
And to find room to get through, he does, and follows Velez. Look at the traffic. Unbelievable. As they try to thread the needle, you got just a glimpse of Sebring history, and before this 12 hours is over, we'll show you more of that. The number 59 Brumos number and color back in action here again, and Hurley Haywood on this 40th anniversary of the race is making his 20th start. That's a record. Look at the traffic. There's the wild Dan Marvin paint job splitting the gap. Furman Velez hands on to the class lead, tucking in behind him the middle class kid who's making it as a big time race car driver, Parker Johnstone, locked right onto his rear wing and determined to not let him get away with a car that he says is not handling the way they would like it to be. And certainly a proud moment here for the guys who built that kudzu car that really gave birth to the Lights division. Jim Downing and his guys up in Georgia. That's why they call it the kudzu. That's the state flower of Georgia, is the kudzu plant. Love that paint.
I'm sure a lot of people in the light class are glad that Jim Downing retired, because he was a perennial champion. That man just was a Camel Light champion over and over. Now, here's the number 59 car of Hurley Haywood that we were talking about a few moments ago. This is an open 962 Porsche. It was built by Kevin Jeanette. He's the man you can just see leaning over the car right behind him. Decided to do some modifications to make a roadster, and it's beautiful. It's totally unique in the world. There is no other GTP car that is a convertible like Kevin's 966.
Hurley says he loves the view from that open cockpit car. We follow the Lights battle as we head for the commercial break. It's Furman Velez, the leader, over Parker Johnstone in a street fight. Brabham leads the Toyota, and we'll be right back with more. 40th anniversary battle at Sebring finds the Nissan of Jeff Brabham, the defending race champion and defending series champion out front, and right there hot on his heels, the Toyota of Juan Manuel Fangio, continuing the legendary family tradition. How's that for the sons of famous fathers running up front? The Nissan of Chip Robinson, the pole sitter, sits in third spot right behind the Toyota and maintaining the pace of the leaders at this point. Robinson with a record 4th pole position. And there you see that lead trio continuing a battle that has been going on since the drop of the green, and I suspect will continue for some length of this 12 hours, because those cars, the Nissan certainly have proven reliability, and the Toyotas demonstrate a lot about their reliability at Daytona. They think they can finish this race.
And twice in a row now here on high-speed tracks, the Toyotas have looked very impressive. Daytona was very much a shock that a little car with a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine is not expected to sit on the pole of the fastest racetrack, and yet there was a Daytona, and look at it here. A serious challenger for Brabham, and I think the Toyota people would dearly love to knock off Nissan today.
We got a lot more coverage to come. We're going to take a look back a little bit deeper in the field as we leave you here, and remind you that we will be coming back at noon Eastern time with more coverage. Brabham leads Fangio with Robinson in third, then the Porsches, Bernd Schneider and Oscar Larari, a couple of Chargers in decade-old design cars, but don't count those Porsches out. They've won 17 times at Sebring. 6 through 10, Gary Brabham, Davy Jones and the Jaguar. They're playing the tortoise in the hare game. They are the tortoise here. Taylor, Velez, and Johnstone a position fight in class. Velez leading in Lights. Malgrati, Gentilozzi, Millendale, and Morgan round out the top 15. Stand by for Sports Center coming up next, and we will be back at noon with continuing coverage of the IMSA Contact 12 Hours at Sebring. A tremendous battle, a record crowd. I'm Dave Despain, Bill Adam alongside. Pit side, we've got Rick DeBrule and Marty Reed. Coming up, more coverage. 12 noon is our time to bring you back here to South Florida amid the orange groves on a beautiful, beautiful Saturday and catch more of the action of the 40th anniversary running at Sebring. Stay with us. Boy, I tell you, the fans have turned out for this one. It's a happy birthday party for an American race. Back at Sebring, here's how they stand. Toyota out front. Juan Manuel Fangio leading the race over the Nissans. Jeff Brabham second. Chip Robinson, the pole sitter, third. And in fourth spot, the Jaguar. We've not talked a lot about Jaguar in our coverage here, but we'll have the opportunity to do that. Massimo Segala is in fifth spot. Here is the leading Toyota. Dave Despain and Bill Adam back with you in South Florida as we watch Dan Gurney's entry set the pace here. You saw the impressive move. But P.J. Jones took the lead early on, but his car has developed a water and oil leak, and so it is up to Fangio to carry the Toyota colors. Winners of 3 of the last 5 races last year, a proven race winner, still looking for championship form. And what a victory it would be for this team if they could win here today, Bill.
This is the one that they would really like to get because they have not proven that they can run a long, hard race yet. But these cars have. They are winners 3 years straight and are trying to do a 4th straight now. They know the formula to win a race like Sebring and Daytona. They run very, very hard. They are very sophisticated cars and look almost unbeatable. A little bit of paper on the front right there. Now that could potentially spell doom. It's strange in a race like this that sometimes just cutting off that tiny bit of airflow creates overheating. See the paper just on the grill of that number 83 car right there. 84 following up. There's the Chip Robinson car. He is running in 3rd place, still with headlights on, still warning people, get out of the way, I'm coming through.
Robinson with the cracked rib nonetheless earned the pole in a rainy qualifying session. Near miss as he brushes by one of the GTU division entries. That is the Leitzinger car. Here is the 4th place automobile, the Jaguar. Now this is the 24-hour Jaguar car. In fact, this car was built for Le Mans. It has raced at Daytona. It does not have the kind of speed that would enable it to keep the pace with the sprint cars entered here by the Nissans. We'll find out more about that story as we go down trackside and check in with Rick DeBrule, one of our 2 pit reporters. Rick?
Well, Dave, Davy Jones is in the car right now. His co-driver is David Brabham, who just be in the car. You guys qualified 10th. You're running 4th, and you said that's all part of the game plan.
Yes, the car is a V12 Jaguar, and it's a total endurance car. And the cars in front of us are really sprint cars, but they're able to do 12 hours, maybe. So our cars just keeps going, and we started 10th, and now we're 4th. And it's looking pretty good.
Use a little strategy during that last yellow flag. What'd you guys do?
Well, we came in during the yellow to do a splash and dash sort of deal, but that gives us more time out in the track and gives us a bit of a window, so if something happens, we're okay, and it's always good to have that up your sleeve.
Once again, playing the long-distance strategy at Jaguar.
Did I notice a glint in young Brabham's eye when he alluded to the possibility that finishing might be an issue here for the Toyotas and the Nissans? It is a Brabham family reunion. All 3 sons of Sir Jack driving in the race here today. Jack Brabham won the World Championship here in 1959. 30 years later, his son won the race. We're inside Parker Johnstone's Acura, which is the leading car in Camel Lights now. And the battle that he had early on with Fermin Velez is broken because his teammate has come to 2nd spot. Costas Los in the other Acura, now running in 2nd spot. Velez had to come in and repair the nose on his Buick Kudzu, and that dropped him nearly a lap down. But he is still in 3rd place and hoping to close it back up and reel in these Acuras, which are truly the dominant cars in the class. You see from the outside of the car, these guys are on a tremendous run of luck, too. They had a minor problem with the engine at Daytona. The car stopped, but it was within pushing distance of pit road. They came in, fixed it, won the race, went to Miami, drove through debris from an early accident, ripped the nose off the car, got a full course yellow, were able to come in and fix it, went on and won the race. I mean, it's tough to beat luck like that.
Oh, sometimes luck does play a very important part in racing, but these fellas spend a lot of time testing, and most of the other teams, even the full P cars, don't realize how much time they spend. Here is the leader of the GTS field, the number 41 Oldsmobile from the Paul Gentilozzi stable. This is a new addition to GTS racing this year. They have come over from a very, very successful Trans Am series. Irv Hare, one of the drivers. John Morton, he's second right now, that number 76 Nissan. And George Robinson. Now, there is a past winner at Sebring here. He's sneaking up into third place already. But this Oldsmobile team is a very serious challenger, running a 6.5-liter V8 motor. Very strong engines, not a turbocharger here. And you can see that high rear wing. It's a fast, strong car, certainly to be reckoned with on the overall picture here today.
Olds versus Nissan, the story there. Nissan has taken a hit already. We go to the GTU division. Don't be confused. That's Parker Johnstone in the lights car moving by to put the GTU leader a lap down, and that is the 96 car, which currently holds that honor in the GTU class. And again, the Nissans are the one of two teams battling there, and that is the John Paul Jr. at the wheel of the number 96 car, the Leitzinger entry, chased here by the 0 car of John Fergus, with Butch Leitzinger, teammate to the leader, currently sitting in third spot. So the Nissans, which by the way have identical engines to the bigger cars out there racing for position in GTU. That resets each of the 4 classes in action here today. We have had a full course yellow to remove a broken car from the racetrack, and now they're bunched back up and racing, and we'll have more of the update right after this. Juan Manuel Fangio leads the race and lives up to car owner Dan Gurney's pre-race prediction that they would get out there and mix it up with the Nissans and try to put a little pressure on the team that has won 3 straight here. And indeed, they have done exactly that. The team car, the teammate car, number 98, took the lead early, but has a mechanical problem that will apparently put that car behind the wall for the day. They took it back to do some work on it. It has not been back out as yet. And so we follow the progress of the lone Toyota remaining. Fangio was, by the way, the fastest the fastest car in qualifying, but not the pole sitter. Remember that the pole qualifying session was held in the rain, and so the speeds that the Nissans used to capture the front row were definitely not at full speed. The leader is on pit road. This is an anticipated scheduled pit stop for what kind of service, Bill, at this point in the race? We're about 2 hours in. Let's go instead right straight to Rick DeBrule.
Well, that's right. He just came in. They're going to make the driver change. This is the scheduled stop. They changed the tires. They put in about 31 gallons worth of fuel. They're going to send it back out. Different than a sprint pit stop in that in this case they're going to change drivers. They take a little longer. It's anticipated they're going to take it a little longer, but that's part of the game plan. Although they don't want to do anything too unusual to stretch this out any more than they have to. But at the same time, when they're making those connections inside the cockpit, they've got to make sure they take a little extra time and do it right. Because if you make a mistake, if you don't get that harness on, and he's got to come back in, you're going to lose time. He goes back out in about 30 seconds.
Nice work by the Gurney crew. Andy Wallace now in the car, the young Brit who in his brief career in these kind of cars has already won Daytona and Le Mans. Very capable chauffeur for Gurney's enterprise, and takes over the lead car, obviously surrendering the lead with a 30-second pit stop, but the first of the leaders to pit, so the Nissans will be coming in quickly. And I got to wonder at this point about the pace. How do you know how fast to go? What kind of lap time does Dan Gurney want to see this guy turning?
Well, what will happen is that prior to the start of the race, each team will decide their own lap time without considering other teams. For example, Gurney may decide that he's going to run a 2-minute and 3-second lap every single lap. And it doesn't matter if the Nissans run a 1:55 lap for the first hour of the race. They are following their own predetermined plan. Once again, we're back to a GTS leader. This is the Olivetti Oldsmobile you see here. Again, 6.5-liter fuel-injected V8 power. No turbo in this car. And it balances out very nicely. The GTS Nissans, the cars that look like the 300ZX cars, they are turbocharged 3-liter cars. As I said, the identical engine to what you see in Jeff Brabham, Chip Robinson GTP car. This car runs with the same horsepower all the time, whereas the Nissans are running with a reduced pace. They turn up a lot of turbo pressure for qualifying, but have to dial back for the race. This makes it all equalize out. Irv Hare, a nice shot of Irv, a good Trans Am GTO runner for years and years, now driving that car.
Irv got a real break earlier in this race in the first hour when one of the cars that it was expected to battle for the class championship went behind the wall, and we'll get the update on that story as we go down trackside to Marty Reed.
Well, we're with Jeremy Dale, who's driving the sister car, the number 76 Nissan, and it was a timing chain that dropped the 75 car back?
Yeah, there's a rubber toothed belt, and we've been having some problems all week. We had my car skip a tooth yesterday, and the car just won't run properly when that timing's off. So they're behind the wall now. They might be able to fix it in about 45 minutes.
Well, you're next scheduled to go into the 76 car. Are you worried about it happening to you?
Well, it's at this point, it's probably the only thing in the back of my mind. Otherwise, you know, we know the car is bulletproof and it's ready to go, and it's running great right now. So that's really the only thing in the back of my mind. Otherwise, we're in great shape.
Well, guys, I can tell you what's on the front of his mind. Take a look at this. It's lunchtime. Whoops, there goes a napkin. We'll have to get that down. But it looks pretty good. Brownies, everything. Want to eat, Dave?
Yeah. I just want to comment, Marty, that
ice cream, please.
That cuts the Nissan GTS effort by 50%, and I think that's about the status report on Marty's voice. I would say an hour into this, he's about 50% as he battles laryngitis here. Might also note that we did have a spin on the 55 car, the Bob Shader, Steve, and Phil Mayer, the skiing brothers entry. They had a loop in their Mazda MX-6, and doggone if we didn't catch it. Take a look. Oh, they're going to hate this. This is the kind of thing they just assume we missed.
Yeah.
But the Mayer brothers go for, actually not a full spin. He got her sideways up over the tiger's teeth and would or would not have damaged the car.
No, probably not. This is a car that has enough ground clearance. There are no ground effects underneath to do any damage too. So other than damaging the ego, it doesn't hurt them too much at all. And again, with the Mazda reliability, well, Mazdas are becoming legendary. They are virtually impossible to beat in the GTU class.
Bob Shader listed as the driver of record in that car for the moment and teamed with the skiing Mayer brothers. So they've had one of literally hundreds of misadventures that take place during the course of a 12-hour race. It's impossible to document them all. The leader after the Toyota pit stop is Jeff Brabham. The race started at 10:19 for the record, and so it will end at 10:19 tonight in the darkness here at Sebring. We'll be back with more ESPN coverage right after this. We're back at Sebring, and the lead automobile bearing that napkin across the front that may or may not affect the cooling of that engine continues to maintain pace here. The team looking for their 4th consecutive victory. Jeff Brabham at the controls right now. He has won 2 of the last 3 races here, lost the lead in the final hour, or actually won the race last year when his teammate had problems in the final hour. Chip Robinson had electrical failure, and that opened the door to Brabham's victory. But keep in mind that the co-driver of this 83 car will be Derek Daly of Noblesville, Indiana, the IndyCar and sports car racer who has already announced that whatever happens here today, it will be his last race. He is retiring. The interesting story, I think, is the incentive he has to do well. If he wins it, if his team wins again this year, it'll be 3 victories in 3 starts at Sebring for Derek Daly. I thought you told me this race was hard to win. Derek thinks it's pretty simple.
Well, personally, I think that's a disgusting record, Derek, just for the record. I have no envy at all in my voice. It's going to be interesting, too. You brought up a very good point. I wonder, did our compatriot down in the pits get paid by another team to drop that napkin that just might get sucked up into the grill of a competitive car here?
Now, for the record, you pointed out that piece of paper before Marty lost the napkin. That is not Marty's napkin.
That's true.
Doesn't take much to derail an effort here in the course of 40 years of racing. We recall Dan Gurney braking within 100 yards of the finish and pushing his car across the line. Mario Andretti in 1970 blowing up his Ferrari with a big lead, jumping into another Ferrari and running down a guy by the name of Steve McQueen, who was driving with a broken leg and winning the closest Sebring ever. In all, a tremendous amount of history here since way back in 1950 when it all began. From the Crosley hotshot that won the first Sebring race through the Le Mans start years to the high-tech Nissan that won last year, this track and its winning cars reflect the entire history of sports car racing in America. And over a 42-year span, the face of Sebring has changed. The first track with 2 long straightaways on the runways of a World War II air base. For 31 years, the famed 5.2-mile circuit that hosted the world's great drivers. In '83, the section in the upper right changed to bypass an active runway, which actually operated during the race. 87 wholesale changes. The purists squawked, but the changes enabled the track and the airport to coexist.
Well, back in the early 80s, the FAA, they used to run on the airport runways, the active runways, and FAA asked the airport authority to move them off the active runways if they wanted to continue running races. So they did that, and the latest change came last year when Mike Cohn came in and took over the facility, and he separated the industrial park from the raceway and created a 17-turn circuit that we are running on today.
Present and past now live together at Sebring. Stevenson is caretaker of a legacy.
We have 330 acres here to maintain year-round. It takes a lot of John Deere equipment operated on a daily basis to keep this place up. And we put a pretty good sum of hours on each piece of equipment.
May need a piece of equipment to haul this car back home. The series point leader, Davy Jones, has stopped on course. The Jag, the endurance car, the car that's known for finishing races, but which was not fast enough to win here, has damage on the right side. And Jones comes out to take a look.
I'm sorry, excuse me, Dave. It does appear the right rear wheel, you can actually see daylight under the outside edge of the wheel. So it looks like something might have collapsed on the right rear suspension. This is a problem again with the Sebring track being so rough. You break parts here that normally will last you through 10 or 20 races or even through a whole season. But Sebring just systematically destroys cars.
He has not gotten the car off the road surface, which would seem to indicate that whatever happened brought him to a pretty abrupt halt. Maybe he didn't have the option, apparently, of getting the car off onto the grass. This is the lead car.
And this may have two effects, is that one, since the car is still on the surface, it will probably bring out a full course yellow. But secondly, he may get a tow back into the pits. So sometimes you deliberately leave your car in a very dangerous position.
I can't imagine that he would do that.
Well, I mean, you or I wouldn't do it, but...
You saw the leader go by as the Jag is stopped, and now with the help of the course marshals, Davies pitching in and helping to, in fact, move the car off course. As we take a look at what is now the second-to-place automobile. Chip Robinson reported still at the wheel of that car, doing a long stint despite his broken rib. So now the car is in arguably safer position, and Jones continues his examination of the right rear. A young man who has a long-term commitment from Tom Walkinshaw's organization. He's talking now somewhat openly about the possibility of looking into Formula One in his near future, but says he wants this championship before he does anything else. He came in here as the leader. A broken race car will definitely damage his hopes. This would have not been their best race, but they definitely wanted out of here with some points.
Oh, for sure. There you can see right there now, Davy is unplugged from the car. They do have two-way communications to the pits, but only when the microphone lead from his helmet is plugged back into the car. He can maybe take a look, and if he thinks it's even halfway possible to do it, it might be worthwhile to try and fix something relatively simple and get back into the race just to salvage what few points he can. Speaking to Ian Reed, the chief engineer for the Jag team prior to the race, Ian had a very interesting point of view. He said that the Jaguar team were entering this race to try and minimize their deficit. In effect, they were ready to concede any possibility of winning, and they said they were looking for maybe third place, maybe fourth place. He said if things fell just their way, they might get second, but it would be a fluke.
So the Jag is on the sidelines. The Nissans continue to run up front, and we'll be back to see if they can maintain that pace as our ESPN coverage continues. We're back in Sebring, the contact. 12 hours of Sebring, 40th running of the race. Second place car is on pit road. Chip Robinson, who extended his own record by claiming a fourth pole position here, will come out of the car after doing a double shift and performing quite effectively, keeping those blue and red colors right up front. And the pit stop thus far appears to be pretty routine. No problems at all for the Nissans in the GTP division here. And he is back out. And now, wait a minute, we have a report from down pit road. This is Parker Johnstone, and he is coasting. That car is dead engine, and here come the crew, and it's Daytona all over again.
Now, I wonder, maybe Parker has just run out of fuel here because there were no lights on the dashboard. Normally, if something happens, there are warning lights for low fuel pressure, low oil pressure, different things. Nothing was showing on the dash, so perhaps Parker switched the car off deliberately. in effect being out of fuel and saving those fuel pumps from running.
Or the other issue might be that it's electrical and there's nothing to power those warning lights. But difficult to know at this point. The onboard camera is still working, so we get a look at Parker Johnstone, and unlike Daytona where he had to climb out and push the car in, he got it onto pit road. Let's go trackside to Marty Reed.
Well, we were talking to Doug Peterson, the head of the crew, and he basically has told us he lost drive. I mean, he just lost all ability to get power back to the wheel, so they are pushing him to a stop here. Dan Marvin behind the wheel, and you can see that it is not a very happy sight, so the Acura effort may be cut in half itself.
Correct my earlier call, as Dan Marvin is the driver in the car after Parker Johnstone took it out early and set a blistering pace in that race that we saw briefly with Fermin Velez. Velez has had problems, and now, indeed, the leading Acura is on pit road with difficulties, and that's got to be with these high-tech cars. How much diagnosis can you do?
Well, something like this is probably an axle problem or part of the transaxle itself. One of the main shafts, since the car has no power going back, he obviously has switched the car off voluntarily. This is a bad scene. The driver is getting out. I think the crew have told him, no, your day is done.
And so, the defending champions from the series are in the pits, and it looks pretty serious. Remember a year ago, Parker Johnstone broke the transmission in this race, came back to the pits, got a new one, lugged it out there. We saw Davy Jones. We alluded to the fact that only the drivers can work on the car. He lugged that tranny all the way back out there, put it in the car, got it back to pit road, went on to take 5th place. It was a remarkable performance. I don't think there's a miracle like that in the offing. Dan Marvin and more on the story about the Acura. Let's go to Marty Reed.
Very hot and frustrated Dan Marvin. Dan, what happened?
I wish I knew, Marty. The Comptech Acura was running great, and coming down the back straight, we got a vibration, then a big thump. I switched it off, and I guess we'll go back and look.
We've got the leader in the pits. Let's go up the other end of the lane.
They'll remove that piece of paper now as Jeff Brabham comes in, and the driver change takes place. Looks to be routine, as was his teammate Robinson's effort just a few minutes ago. Derek Daly climbing in, hoping to make it 3 for 3 in Sebring. I wonder if he'll reconsider his retirement plans. I don't think so. He says he will not. I asked him that question yesterday. I said, if you win, will you at least come back next year and try to make it 4 for 4? Derek said, no, I am a retired race car driver after today. What a great way it would be to finish. Derek is in the car for the first time as they head back out on course, and this we'll have to check interval and see if they indeed get back onto the racetrack in front of or behind the Toyota, which had made its pit stop earlier. They're significantly out of sequence now in terms of their pit stops, and that will perhaps affect race strategy as they make the decisions about whether they should go out and try to run one another down. Really, at this juncture in a 12-hour race, how critical is it to be leading?
Well, it really isn't. As long as you stay close to the lead, that's the important thing, not to let anybody kind of break away from the pack. What Derek has to do right now is almost to get reacquainted with the car. He's been sitting on the pit wall watching, and of course he's been aware of things going on around him. Right now he has cold race tires that are coming up to temperature. He's got a car that he hasn't been in. There's Davy Jones. That's the saddest day in his life right now.
Now see, the crew are there, but they can't help.
No,
that's the rule.
They can advise him only. Davy has to do the work himself. You can see a jack underneath the back of the car. There's a jack that literally has been put underneath his air jack. They can bring tools over to the area. Davy physically has to use the tools himself, and you can see that's exactly what he's doing.
Can't pick up the cellular phone out of the dashboard and call the mobile mechanic for this one. He's got a AAA. All right, so Jones working on the right rear. An apparent suspension failure back there has brought him to a grinding halt. We'll be back to check on the on-course repairs after this timeout from Sebring. We're back at Sebring, and let's answer the question of where the Nissan is relative to the Toyota. About a car length apart, I'd say. Derek Daly has a mirror full of that number 99 as he works his way back up to speed. You alluded to the fact that it might take him a couple of laps to get to speed. Andy Wallace is not going to give him any slack during that couple of laps.
Oh, for sure. And what Andy wants to do at this point is to try and push Derek into making a mistake. The reason the Nissan team hires people like Derek is to use his experience, his expertise, so as not to make a mistake at this point. The tires, as I mentioned, are cold when they go on the cars, and they don't really work properly until they gain a couple of 100 degrees Fahrenheit, of course, in temperature. Now look at this. Look at the Toyota's horsepower right here. Just tucked right up to the inside. Now it's this long drag race down the straight. 3-liter V6 on the right of your screen, 2-liter 4-cylinder on the left. And this one is won by the 3-liter V6.
Great battle for position, and this is for the lead overall at Sebring. We're working an hour to a 12-hour race. Big off the corner is the strong suit of the Toyota, and this time, well, again, the Nissan's got the right line. Who's going to get there first?
I would bet Nissan.
Okay, you win. Nissan hangs on with Derek Daly in control. Andy Wallace putting a lot of pressure on and doing exactly what you said, I think, trying to force the mistake. Now, this looks like the battle on the last lap for position, but they've still 10 hours to go. And so I guess the key question is, do you want to push this hard this early? Is this the team manager's nightmare?
Well, yes. Were I a manager for the Toyota right now, I would say do exactly what you're doing. See if you can force Daly to make a mistake. Because Daly is not yet familiar with traffic patterns, with the full handling of the car right now, with its fuel load and so on, he is not going to be 100% as good as he will be after spending half an hour in this car. So the best chance for the Toyota driver to force the Nissan to make a mistake is now. This is their chance to win the race, perhaps.
Traffic to deal with. They slip to the inside, make it 3 wide for a moment, and now they did get by the Toyota. For a moment, looked like he was going to have to duck back in behind, but Andy Wallace just kept the hammer down and said, no, thank you. I'm not going to let a lapper in here. I'm having too much fun putting the heat on Derek.
You made a good point earlier, Dave, that Andy Wallace is a past winner of the Daytona 24. He is a past Le Mans winner, and there's the Bud Light Jag back in the pits finally. So this is good news for the Jaguar. They will get this car fixed and back underway. You can bet that, because that's Sebring. We've talked again about just the variety of problems that a car can have, and you never know when you're out of the race, or you never know when you can win.
Shortage of spare parts is not a problem for the TRW team. It's one of the best funded and best organized teams in racing. Tom Walkinshaw has become legendary for his assault with the Jags, and now there is a lot of talk about them heading for the Formula One wars, and the speculation that Davy Jones will go along for the ride. Davy may well test an F1 Benetton before this season is out, if the rumor mill is to be believed. The car is back underway. Let's go trackside to Rick DeBrule.
Well, standing here with Davy Jones, the driver, and Davy Jones, the mechanic. What happened out there?
Well, the right-hand wheel nut came off the rear tire, and you know, it has pegs that kind of hold it on once the nut comes off, but once you go through a right-hand turn, it just comes off those pegs, so I didn't have any drive to the car. Fortunately, they were able to get a jack out to me, and I was able to put the tire back on and get it back to the pits. It's about 5 laps early, that's all, but that's a hard job doing those rear tires.
You'd been out there for some time before that happened.
Well, I was out there since the start of the race, and we took a little advantage of the yellow and topped up with fuel, but I was 5 laps short of David Brabham getting in, so it's a shame it happened because we were sitting real nice, but it's a long ways to go, and we're after points.
Now, for what it's worth, the flat rate for working on a Jaguar Le Mans car is significantly more than what you're charged at your local dealer. So I think we can assume that Davy Jones did pick up a few $100 extra in the last hour, regardless of what happens in the outcome of the race. What he wants out of here is points, and that's the reason that they went to extraordinary lengths to get the car back to the pits and get it. And losing the lug nut is not that big a deal, depending on what other damage it might have done.
No, it probably really didn't do any other damage, and I think it tribute here to the crew that Tony Dow and the crew of that particular Jag really did an outstanding job in chatting with Davey, trying to figure out what the problem was and getting the parts there as fast as possible. They did not lose much time at all.
Traffic is certainly an issue here. We've talked about 4 classes. Those 4 classes run at 4 different paces, essentially. And when you get stuck behind a slower car, it can hang you up, and that appears to have happened to Wallace. Or perhaps Derek has come to speed now and is comfortable to go ahead and run the pace. But in any case, there is a bit of a gap here from first to second.
Yes, I think your initial guess was right. I saw Wallace get stuck behind a couple of cars, and he is being very careful. There is additional pressure put on Andy and Fangio now that this is the only Toyota left in the race. They don't want to risk the car too much. Here's our Camel Lights leader. This is that gorgeous paint job. The number 44 Buick engine car might be pitting this particular lap as well.
I was going to ask you how you picked him out, but perhaps the distinctive paint job. Furman Velez went out fast early, had a problem, nicked the nose, had to come in and repair it, was nearly a lap behind. But now that the Acura has suffered what appears to be, the lead Acura has suffered what appears to be a terminal problem, and Velez is back out in front, heading for what should be a routine pit stop. And I suspect we'll have a driver change as well, because Velez, it's warming up here, and I would think a couple of stints, a couple of hours at the wheel is going to be about all anybody wants to do here today.
David, if Perry Ellis comes out with menswear that looks like that, are you going to wear it?
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that paint job.
Yeah, I love Perry Ellis clothing, but it might be a little too much. Good on a car road.
Here's the traffic we talked about. One of the GTU cars being put another lap down, John Annis' machine from Tampa, Florida. Actually, that is actually a GTS car, and worth a note, because these guys are running a Chevy Lumina. You get a glimpse of that yellow automobile. And they're local short track stock car racers who decided they'd go out and give their local race a try, and they've just been overlapped by Furman Velez as he presses on in lights with a big and went to pit road.
I believe he did.
Here comes that yellow Lumina down the front straightaway, and there on pit road is the class leader. Let's go to Marty Reed.
Well, Furman Velez brings it to a stop. They are going to replace the front nose section again on this car because it's got some damage on the right front corner. And there will be a driver change here as Andy Evans is getting out of into the car in place of Furman Velez. We've got the new nose going back on. I can tell you exactly why they're changing the nose. They had the setup for the nighttime driving lights on there, and they need to work on that before night actually falls. So that's why they had to make the change here. So Andy Evans is back in, a little duct tape to keep the front nose on. He adjusts the mirror on the left side, and he's back underway.
That will not be the last nose change that we will see then. Apparently, they'll have to bring the car back in sometime before darkness and get the proper setup. And that, of course, is related to the lighting. And swapping the nose on these things is not really that big a deal, other than the cost of that fiberglass.
Now here's a change. Look at the Toyota with the headlights on. Now, is he trying to occupy the mind of leading Nissan?
Giving him something to think about as the Nissan and the Toyota battle it out. 40th anniversary of the Contact 12 Hours of Sebring. We'll be right back. We're back at Sebring, where the number 99 Toyota of Andy Wallace is leading the race. We're going to have a word with this young man about how television is supposed to work. You never want to make the critical pass while we're in commercial. But, of course, if that's going to happen, you want to make sure you have the replay. And here it is. This happened just minutes ago. And look at the magnificent move on the outside.
Andy decided to take a late apex, was well up on boost when he was in the corner. But look at Derek Daly. Look, try the inside, try the outside. Come on, I want the lead back.
Pass him in the grass if you have to. Daly couldn't find a way around. That Toyota got pretty wide on entrance into the final turn on the racetrack. Wallace clearly wants to lead this race and has simply driven away. Daly is not anywhere in sight.
That is a bit amazing. He really has pulled away very quickly. He probably has a 3 or 4 second lead just in the space of a lap and a half.
Does this not bring us back to the issue of the pace that you want to run here? You see the interval back to the 83 car. There's either a problem with 83 or the Toyota team is simply willing to run faster at this juncture in the race.
Yeah, I would think it's just the Toyota team have decided to go at a slightly quicker pace. And perhaps Derek got caught up in the moment. This is something that's very, very easy because you are out there, you're a racing driver. And to try and drive at a set pace sometimes is very difficult. A car will pass you and you think, no, geez, I can repass you, and you want to play a little bit. You want to get back into the real sport of racing rather than driving at a certain pace. So it's easy to do it. And he may have heard from the crew chief saying, Derek, just back off 1 or 2 seconds a lap and let's get back on the pace.
For the record, Chip Robinson told me yesterday, and Dan Gurney, for the record, agreed that the pace of this race is determined by the driver. The driver is allowed to go as fast as he feels he can go without injuring the car. Now, I'm not sure I would 100% believe that they're going to allow the driver that total freedom, but that was Gurney's take on this.
I would agree with your skepticism, too. I think that's something that is determined well ahead of time. when I was part of Jaguar is here we're looking at the GTU leader now. This is the number 96 Leitzinger Racing Nissan. Once again, that Nissan name keeps popping up here, leading every class.
And this is, I believe, Butch Leitzinger at the wheel of that car now. This is the Nissan 240 SX and the Leitzinger family racing entry. Bob, of course, is the patriarch of the clan, and his sons, Chuck Kurtz and Butch Leitzinger, are co-driving with him. What great fun that must be to have a family racing effort, mature, and be able to compete at this level of competition.
The only problem is what happens when your sons get faster than you are. Now, I don't know if I could take that or not.
Well, the same thing that happens to all old racers when the young kids come along. You got to give them a little bit of room. The advantage is to be able to own the team and have some say about team strategy. This is the GTS leader on pit road, and this is the lone Nissan remaining, the 76 car, piloted by Jeremy Dale and John Morton. Let's go trackside to Marty Reed.
Well, John Morton is climbing out. Jeremy Dale, lunch is now over for Jeremy. It's time to go to work as he climbs back in. We should bring you up to date. The 75 has gone back out, but as far as winning chances, you're absolutely right, Dave. This is the only car that can win GTS for Nissan. The front nose section coming off and a new one going on. And I'm taking a look at the front nose, and I don't see any particular reason why they would be taking it off at this point. We'll try and check with them to see if there's anything design-wise, but this car has been running flawlessly compared to the sister car especially. So the engine's refired. It looks like they'll finish up the tire change, and it'll be time to get back to work. And here goes Jeremy Dale.
Putting on a used nose there. Got a lot of tape on the front end of that one. At 2 hours, that car's already showing a little bit of the beating. Imagine what 12 hours will be like. You don't have to imagine. You can see it here on ESPN as we stick with this 40th anniversary Sebring running. Andy Wallace is the leader, and we'll be right back. We're back at Sebring, where Andy Wallace is about to overlap the 5th place car. That is Massimo Segala at the wheel of that red Porsche. And there is the pass. Meanwhile, coming up here on ESPN immediately following this telecast, season opener for baseball, Pittsburgh Pirates versus Minnesota Twins. Actually, of course, preseason action, wrapping up spring training with a half dozen games here on ESPN and anticipating opening day. So excitement for the baseball fans and certainly for the record crowd of fans of motorsports gathered here today. They have seen tremendous action at the head of the field, most recently from this guy, Andy Wallace, the young Britain speedster, and the Dan Gurney prepared Toyota has assumed the lead, fulfilling Gurney's prophecy that they would get out front and make the Nissans work for it today, try to put pressure on the Nissans, try to force them to break, but perhaps most importantly, run a pace that they think they can win the race with. Remember that the Toyota finished an endurance race, an IMSA competition for the very first time the first weekend in February at the Daytona 24 Hours, and they did very well. Despite a lot of niggling problems, they were able to come home with a 4th place finish overall, and that really buoyed the confidence of this team and puts them in a position where they think they can go out and run hard in this race and still finish.
Well, it seems to hold true, because I think Daytona showed that the engine, the little 4-cylinder, was perhaps what everybody thought of being as the weak link of the car. A 4-cylinder that puts out 700 horsepower, as you can well imagine, really has to be stressed extremely highly. They run boost pressures far, far beyond what anybody else runs, and as a result, the engine should be the weak link. To finish 24 hours of racing where you're running 8,000 RPM all the time is an incredible engineering feat. Now here, we're going to see, can the chassis put up with it? Obviously, they know the engine can, they know the transmission can, because inside those gear casings, it's the same type of equipment that is run in a Nissan, that's run in a Toyota, that's run in a Chevrolet Spice. They all, most of them buy their gears from the same people. It's a Hewland type of a transmission. But what we're going to watch now is perhaps for a failure in the suspension itself, and just see if that can make do.
I hope Dan didn't tell me this off the record yesterday. I don't recall that he did, but they did break a gear in practice, and he was quick to point out that it was not a type of gear that they would be running in the race. And then he laughed and kind of grinned and said, actually, we bought it from Jaguar. And, I think maybe they saved that one for us.
Yes.
It was not their racing gearbox that they broke. A lot of traffic right there as Wallace, and that's the kind of thing that can bite you faster than anything else here. And keep in mind, too, if you've just joined us for our second hour of coverage and missed the opening show, that the team car, the other Toyota, went on the sidelines early, jumped out front, took the lead, lasted less than 5 laps, and was parked with engine problems. So it's not a shoe-in for these guys. He is out front, but he is also carrying the banner alone. This was the fastest car in practice. It was not the pole-sitting car because of a quirk in the qualifying procedure. It rained on the qualifying session that set the pole, and the Nissan started up front. But this was the fastest car. A combination of speed and durability that Gurney hopes will bring this team home a winner.
Now, the 98 car is actually back on the racetrack, and what they're doing is almost using it. There he is right there, as a matter of fact. They're using this as a test session. They can run this car as hard as they want. They have nothing to lose at this point. He is so far behind, he can't possibly get back up into any sort of challenging position. But it's a perfect test. They are at the roughest track that they will face this year. And here, if something is going to break, it will break at Sebring. So run the car hard, run at a qualifying pace, and to see what will break.
That is, by the way, the 4th place car that he has just passed, and that is, I believe, now Frank Jelinski at the controls of the Torno Porsche right there. You just the green, white, and pink paint job coming through your screen. Now there you get a good look at Jelinski. And boy, Jelinski is Mr. Solid. He's the guy. You talk about lap time, setting a pace. You tell him what you want to run, he'll go out there and run it for you all day. Traffic, day, night, doesn't matter. Tell me what you want, boss, and I'll deliver. He's a true pro in endurance racing. And again, driving that Porsche design that made its debut back in 1962, and with some updates, remains competitive enough to run 4th and 5th here. Look at the wide line here.
Actually, I should say that the design actually made its debut in 1982. Sometimes we think the Porsche is old, but it wasn't quite that old, Dave. But yeah, and an interesting point, too, is that the old Porsche design was designed as an endurance car, not as a sprint car. Like the Toyota, for example, what the Nissan was originally designed for. So the Porsche's strength is going forever, and Sebring is a perfect place for it. Witness their incredible record here.
Let us make one other point as we watch P.J. Jones and Frank Jelinski, and make it rather quickly, and that is that the Mazda, the newest entry in GTP, is not in the field. They have a rather unusual and unique problem. It relates to the muffler on the car. It's a 4-rotary engine, makes a lot of noise. It takes a lot to quiet it down, and the muffler is creating a heating problem that causes the body to delaminate. They came here, practiced, and then had to park the car. Almost off the road goes Jelinski, and we'll be back with more from Sebring. It's the Contact 12 Hours of Sebring, the 40th running here on ESPN. We're back live, ESPN's exclusive coverage of the 12 Hours of Sebring, the race led by Andy Wallace in the Toyota. All the legends from the history of endurance racing have been here. Here's action on pit road, and this would be, I believe, the GTU leading entry. Butch Leitzinger was at the wheel of that car when it came on pit road for what appears to be a pretty routine service from the Nissan folks. Well represented here. I mean, they're the leader in the GTU division. They're battling for the lead in GTO, and they're second up top. Let's go to Marty Reed, trackside.
Well, we can tell you guys that it's John Paul Jr. in the car, and he has stalled it on the way out of pit lane, and now the crew is trying to push it to get it restarted. It does kick over, but John Paul Jr., a late addition when Chuck Kurtz came down with stomach virus.
Appreciate the update on the driver change. That's probably the hardest thing about endurance racing, is keeping track of who's in the car at any given moment. John Paul Jr., of course, has a long and illustrious history in this series. I think it's the first time he's driven a GTU car, that at least in my memory.
Yeah, I don't remember John getting into one either. He's driven lights and virtually everything else, but I don't think he's been in new cars. He will be quick, though.
He certainly started as the young hot shoe in this series. Coming up next on ESPN, we've got baseball. Pirates versus the Twins. Stick around. They'll be flinging the first pitch here in about 5 minutes away, as we bring you action from Sebring, and we're going to stay with the action all day long. What we're going to do is put the highlights in the can for you so that when we come back at 10 o'clock tonight, we can show you everything that happens from now until then, bring you the finish of the race, talk to all the champions of our 4 divisions here. So ESPN with comprehensive coverage of an American Motorsports Classic. For the moment, it's an all Toyota story. We have certainly not heard the last of the Nissans. We'll be back to wrap things up from Sebring right after this. ESPN Speed World's coverage of the 12 hours of Sebring has been brought to you by Acura Automobiles. Experience precision-crafted performance. And by today's Contact, 12 hours stronger than your miserable cold. And at Sebring, the leader has come on pit road. Andy Wallace coming in for a tire change. Took a wild excursion across the grass a moment ago. Doesn't appear to have hurt the car. And Toyota has set the pace here, and certainly, Bill, with 2 hours and some minutes of this in the book, you've gained everything you need to know to be able to predict the winner. Is this car going to hold on and upset the Nissans?
Well, I think it could. I think right now that the biggest stumbling block I can see is maybe somebody like Andy Wallace doing a mistake like he just did. And we just saw him literally drive straight across a piece of grass to get by a slower vehicle. That will not win you a race.
Not an endurance race like Sebring, for sure. It's a long grind until the finish, and there will certainly be myriad dramas and stories that will play out before this day is over. This team has already had won their lead car early in the race. In fact, inside of 4 or 5 laps had difficulties and went to the sidelines with a water leak. They repaired that and returned. This car will now undergo an extended pit stop, and he did some damage to the nose there as he went through the grass. We're going to take you on a full field rundown as far as we have time for here in just a moment. Try to get you at least 20 so that you folks who are following favorites at home get the opportunity to see where your favorites are running. And keep in mind, we do have 4 divisions of competition. Now, this will knock the Toyota out of the lead. It will put the Nissans back on top. And I'm a little surprised. I thought they would have been out there by now. He's going to drop to at least 3rd, and that would be the tail end of the lead lap. They had lapped the 2 Porsches, so there were 3 cars on the lead lap. Here's the Toyota coming back out. They have repaired the damage. You will be 3rd behind the Nissans, and we'll take a look at the entire field here down through the top 20 or so as Wallace returns to the fray. Derek Daly, hoping to win his 3rd Sebring in 3 tries, has the lead. Bob Earl, the teammate to pole sitter Chip Robinson, sits in 2nd. Then Wallace is 3rd. Bernd Schneider, the Bullet from Germany, in the Porsche in 4th. And the Moretti Porsche sitting in 5th. Hugh Fuller is in 6th spot with Andy Evans sitting 7th. That's a lights car. Charles Morgan trying to win his 4th at Sebring. Mel Grotti and Jeremy Dale rounding out the top 10. Jack Baldwin giving the Olds a good ride in 11th spot. Howard Katz, Darren Brassfield, Ruggiero Melgrati, and John Paul Jr. round out the top 15. And to get you back through 20, Fergus, Leitzinger, Bartling, Ureta, and Kreider. Those are the top 20. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sebring. Dave Despain with Bill Adam up top side, down pit side. It's Rick DeBrule and Marty Reed as we prepare to bring you not only the run to the finish, but the entire story of how this fascinating race has unraveled. And Bill, we came here with a tremendous sense of history, this being the 40th anniversary of the race. I think we've relearned an old truth about this kind of racing. There are as many ways to lose as there are to win.
And it has proven to be very true today. A driver has a couple of ways. Number one, he can stick the car in the guardrail and do enough damage that he's not going to finish. But secondly, he may bend up some of the machinery by being ham-fisted with it. Even more important, because of the rough nature of this track, the car itself can self-destruct in a variety of ways. It can have mechanical breakdown in the engine or transmission. It can break a suspension piece. The lights can fail, also important at night. It can even get electrical problems that people can't find. So there's tons of ways, and believe me, they all show up at Sebring.
Oh, indeed, we've seen them all in the hours that have preceded, and perhaps we'll see more before this is all done. I'll give you an example of the kind of thing that's going to go wrong. A press note about Furman Velez, early leader in the Camel Lights class. Came his turn to go drive, they couldn't find him. He was locked in the motorhome, didn't know the combination for the little electronic lock, and couldn't get to the race car. Let's take a look at the statistical summary and see first how we got to where we are. We find that with nearly 1,200 miles in the book, we've had 5 leaders and 20 lead changes. Nissan dominated early as expected, but they have encountered some of those problems we discussed. Toyota has taken this race by the throat. Look at the cars out of the race and the variety of different reasons for those the demises, including, of course, the Acura that was expected to dominate in the Camel Lights division. That's the number 49 car with the engine problem. The Oldsmobile in a crash, one of the on-course mishaps. And we're going to take you now to the highlights. We'll take you back to the get-go, the fall of the green flag, and show you how this race began early this morning. With perfect Florida weather and a record crowd looking on, the 40th anniversary green flag fell at Sebring, and the front row Nissan led the charge to turn 1. They didn't stay up front very long. P.J. Jones, with a daring move to the inside, puts the Toyota out front. The challenge for Nissan was clear, but it lasted about 5 laps. P.J. went behind the wall.
P.J. Jones, unfortunately, sitting on the wall. They're going to continue working on the car. Overheating?
Yeah, we had to do a last-minute motor change between the warm-up and the race. This was an unfortunate incident. We didn't get any time on this motor, and going out and running hard at the beginning probably didn't do it any good. But there was no other choice we had. There's something wrong with it. We don't know what it is, but it's unfortunate for Toyota and Dan Gurney. We had such a good run going. We got the Nissan from the first lap, and we were just on a nice, comfortable pace.
They're pushing it behind the wall, but they're going to continue working on it.
Yeah, we're going to take a look at it and see if we can fix it, but I don't know what the situation's going to be.
That Toyota did return, albeit many laps down. Meanwhile, the second team car of Juan Manuel Fangio joined the charge to the lead. First to go to the front, Jeff Brabham passing his teammate, the pole sitter Chip Robinson. And not long thereafter, Fangio saw the opportunity. He too made the inside move on Robinson, who's driving the race with a broken rib. He took over the second spot, and Dan Gurney's strategy was clear with the Toyotas: keep the pressure on the Nissan. Here is the Camel Lights battle early. You ride inside with Parker Johnstone, the series champ, as he chases the 44 of Furman Velez in a spirited battle for the leadership in the lightweight GTP class. Here is the Oldsmobile that dominated all day in GTS. Irv Hare at the controls of the big bore American-built sedan as that class thunders on. The Jaguar with problems immediately as Davy Jones lost a wheel nut and a lot of time in the pits. Key for this team was survival and get out of town with some points. Watch the action as Andy Wallace charges around the outside of Derek Daly. Toyota versus Nissan flat out at Sebring. Watch the retaliation from Derek Daly. Oh, that Toyota got very, very wide and held on to the lead throughout the daylight hours. The Nissan-Toyota battle continued. Clearly, the challenge was there. In the GTU division, the one team that had a comparatively trouble-free day as Bob Leitzinger's operation runs up front. If you have been with us for our 2 hours of exclusive live coverage earlier in the day, you've seen all of those highlights. When we come back, we're going to show you an awful lot that you have not yet seen. Our continuing coverage of this 40th anniversary 12-hour event at Sebring. Stick with us for the entire story and a chance to meet the winners. Approaching the 3-hour mark in the race, the number 83 Nissan back in the lead. Derek Daly at the controls. A seesaw battle with the Toyota had seen both cars lead, and Daly found himself back out front as a result of an aggressive bit of driving by Andy Wallace. Wallace and Daly had been slugging it out back and forth, and after Wallace took the lead, he turned in what Bill Adam described as, well, I'll let you describe it again.
I describe it as inexcusable. Look at the car right here, bangs over the grass, tears up the underbody of the car. What Wallace did was to commit himself to such an early line. He was setting himself up for damage in the car. Inexcusable. You cannot do this in an endurance race, and yet he did. He was not forced off line. He chose the wrong line, resulting in a second pit stop to fix the damages.
And to cover that pit stop, we go trackside to Rick DeBrule.
Well, not only was there one pit stop, there were 2 pit stops to repair the damages. The second pit stop was simply to replace this. It's the end plate on the rear wing. Now, it may not look like very much, and it doesn't weigh anything, but this provides a significant amount of downforce. It helps to channel the air. In fact, they think that the reason Rocky Moran crashed last year at Del Mar was because this broke off. The result, they had to bring him back in, repair this, and send him back out into the race.
Well, the Hour 3 headline might read prototype problems, or perhaps the trials and tribulations of the Andes. We saw Andy Wallace give up the lead with an off-course excursion. The lighter prototype division led at the moment by Andy Evans. Minutes later, he came on pit road, and you can see the problem with the left rear on that automobile. Obviously, with that right front up in the air, serious difficulties that Rick DeBrule reports on from pit road.
Well, apparently, the car had a flat tire on the left rear. At that point, he hit something really hard, broke the rear suspension. As a result, Andy Evans had to bring the car in. They're going to be here a while repairing this. But to add insult to injury, the second team car has also come in with a problem with the rear suspension. Now, at this point, both cars are on pit row. Both teams working furiously to get the cars back out to the track.
With those two Buick Kudzus on pit road together, lo and behold, the other Acura comes out with the lead in Camel Lights.
Well, once again, these gremlins of Sebring strikes, and it's like I said earlier, you can never tell when you're going to win, when you're going to lose.
Ruggiero Melgrotti at the wheel of that car, scheduled to make a routine stop. Parker Johnstone, the class pole sitter and class champion, with a broken car. The team car to this has retired from the event. Word is that indeed Parker Johnstone may climb in the number 48 on what began as a routine pit stop, but as reported from trackside by Rick DeBrule, it didn't end up being routine.
Well, the car has come in, and indeed Parker Johnstone is now getting in. It's going to be difficult for him for two reasons. First, he's not a tall person, but he's definitely much taller than either Ruggiero Melgrotti or Costas Lowe's. The other thing is both cars have been set up differently throughout the weekend. Parker Johnstone set up the 49 car the way he wanted it. Melgrotti set this one up the way he wanted it. So not only does he have to squeeze himself in, but he's going to be driving a car that handles significantly different than the other car. Now, they pulled the nose off the car as well. It's just precaution. They're concerned that some little chunks of wheel that have been coming off the cars have actually been squeezing up, bouncing into the front wheel well and into the opening of the cockpit right there, where it's actually jamming the throttle. Just a concern. They're clearing it out to make sure, and then they'll send this guy back out on the racetrack.
Quickly, Bill, I would think that a sticking throttle would be a major concern.
Yes, it would, and I think particularly with the size difference, you already made a note there that Parker is a substantially different size. That is more trouble than what it sounds like. You know yourself, when you jump into a street vehicle, you're not comfortable unless you get the seat set. That's a problem.
Cool Suit also undergoing some adjustment here. I think it's fluid level problem as they try to keep Parker Johnstone nice and cool as he goes out to try to help this team win. Johnstone, as we said, the defending class champion, has made a meteoric rise through the ranks of IMSA. Again, Rick DeBrule.
Parker Johnstone has this thing about winning. He loves it. Last year's Camel Lights title in an Acura means he now has 5 championships in 4 different classes. But as impressive as that is, Parker says his biggest victory is simply being here.
I feel that I've been very fortunate, one of the few people in the country, and I can name them, Dorsey Schrader, Scott Pruitt, and just a couple others that have come from middle-class backgrounds and have actually lived the American racing dream.
His first championship came back in 1984, on a shoestring budget, of course.
And I bought a Renault Cup car from a dealer who financed the whole thing. So I had $100 down, got a race car with a roll cage and a harness, and I went into the Renault Cup Series.
Winning in that class got him noticed by the folks at Honda, and that eventually led to the chance to drive an Acura in IMSA races for team owner Doug Peterson.
He showed an ability to go fast and set up a car properly without doing any damage to the car, ever. I mean, he was very easy on the equipment, both from a mechanical point of view and a bodywork point of view, which made him an instant hit with the crew members because they didn't have to work on the car very much.
It's a team effort that has not only gotten stronger, but more enjoyable as well.
To me, the money and maybe the light at the end of the tunnel as far as career goals or the top of the ladder isn't as important as enjoying the people that I'm with. And I think this is one of the best teams in auto racing.
Which means any decision about his future is simple.
What I've decided to do a number of years ago when the Camel Light car was in the process is to stay here and see where this ends up, because we've spent so much time together as a family, as a team, that we've kind of built the foundation, put the walls up, and I want to be around for the roof and the interior finishing, and I want to see where this ends up. If Camel Light is as far as we go, then this is the best thing that I've ever done in my life, and I want to see it through to its finish. And if it continues into another class, that's great.
Well, there is a vague allusion, I think, to the possibility of a GTP Acura down the road. I, for one, think there's no doubt that'll happen, but that's speculation on my part.
I agree with your speculation. I think with Honda's success in Formula One over the past few years, to build a full-scale GTP car is it's a natural progression for this team.
And Parker Johnstone is a natural driver for the car because he's won all the championships along the way up to Camel Light, and now a GTP ride would be a logical extension of that. Here he is battling for position with, again, the man who was the father of Camel Lights, Jim Downing, who really created the class with those kudzus, has taken the lead as a result of Johnstone's pit stop, and that's going to be a battle, I think, that will now continue through the rest of the race. We'll be back with more of the highlights of Sebring 92 right after this.
No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get her last words out of my head. As I came over the ridge, I kicked it into fifth. And suddenly, I couldn't hear a word she said.
So I'm doing my sound check. Hello. And I hear this woman's voice.
Crunch that last chord. I'll show you.
She grabbed the guitar, and then she started rocking. No, I mean rocking.
You're pretty good. Not.
Someone that hot deserves something this cold. Suddenly, I remembered this was a bud spot.
I like your style.
The team to beat, Nigel Mansell and Ricardo Patrese. But can they hold off world champion Ayrton Senna? Expect nothing less than the unexpected at the Grand Prix of Mexico, Sunday on ESPN.
Under sunny skies with temperatures in the 70s, a perfect afternoon for racing. The 40th running of the Contact 12 Hours of Sebring. And as we pick up the highlights at the 4-hour and 10-minute mark, an intramural battle for the lead between the Nissans, number 83 and number 84. Currently at the controls of the 83 Nissan, Gary Brabham, and driving the 84 car, Harry Lyondike, the former Indy winner. And having at it in traffic here, everyone expected the Nissans to be strong, Bill Adam. Right now, the two of them battle for the lead.
It is almost unfortunate to say that they are running 1-2 because these cars have become such consistent leaders in this field that it borders on boring for them, although I'm sure they're not getting bored. The Jaguar has run into problems, as we saw earlier, Davy Jones shedding a wheel, and there's a little pass for the lead now. You can see they are not exactly following team orders. These fellows can go at it tooth and nail if they want, as long as there's no contact.
And of course, they maintain a pace that team management is comfortable with, but the pace in this race has been remarkable. In hour 4, they were running at speeds comparable to that which they qualified. Indeed, 12-hour races have become long sprints. It's like mile racing in a sense. You've really got to go hard for the whole distance.
Yes, Nissan has upped the ante. It used to be that you tried to win this race at the slowest possible speed, and now these cars are so strong that they can run very close to a sprint pace all the way through 12 hours, and it's incredible. You think of the fatigue that this machinery is put through, and yet they seemingly do this year after year.
Lyondike taking the lead for the first time. The car has led earlier, but Lyondike is up on top. Now, we've had some attrition in the GTP class, including one dropout that we find particularly unfortunate. With that story, Marty Reed.
Well, attrition may have bit another team. In fact, the Applebee's number 4, the Chevy Spice, Wayne Taylor at the wheel, is in the pits, and it's an extended stop. The whole rear end is off. It looks as though they have got a gearbox problem. And talk about temperatures. These guys are reaching in there with just these thin gloves at over 200 degrees, and the hands are scorching right now, but they're working on this thing, trying to get this car back out on the race course.
Simultaneously in the GTU class, A battle for the lead. Here is the number 95 car, currently driven by Butch Leitzinger, and here is the second place car in the class, Don Walker, currently at the controls of the red number 0, and that's a Dodge. And this, we talk about factory battles at the head of the field for the overall bill, with Nissan and Toyota battling right now, but those factory confrontations extend down through all the classes, and we see it right here in GTU.
And they are very, very serious battles. To show you just how serious he's getting, the crew chief on this particular car here, which is effectively the Chrysler entry, is a fellow who has become very, very familiar with GT prototypes over the years. Now, he was persuaded to come away, and Emery Donaldson is now part of the GTU effort. Runs a spectacularly good effort. They are a little bit of a disadvantaged team here because they're short on horsepower compared to the Nissan and even Mazda. They're down in horsepower, but the cars handle very well and they're tremendously reliable.
This 17-turn, 3.7-mile course puts a premium on horsepower with long straightaways. You got to have the get up and go to be able to maintain the quick pace that is becoming quite common, as we noted earlier, in these sprint-style races. And one other word about the gearbox problem. That's very common here, given the rough conditions of the racetrack. Here is your GTU running order at the 4-hour and 10-minute mark.
Larry Huffman inside the Carburetor King factory, where for a limited time we'll rebuild any carburetor for $99.95 or less. Any carburetor, including trucks and imports, $99.95 or less. We are the factory, not a parts store. Our family has been in the business since 1946. Bring your carburetor to one of our factory outlets and we'll custom rebuild it to factory specs in one day, and you save up to 70%. The Carburetor King, the highest quality, the lowest price, guaranteed.
Every spring I do the same thing. Do a little planning, take the kids to Little League, dodge raindrops, and I deliver lots of Toyota cars and trucks because it's time for the Toyota Spring Drive sales event.
Spring is here and so are great deals on a big selection of Toyotas. Up to $1,100 option package savings on Corolla and big factory dealer incentives. A great value. Factory to dealer incentives make this the time to deal America's lowest price two-door sedan to sell. Toyota Spring Drive sales event is on. See your dealer today.
I'll be back after a fill-up.
Back at Sebring, we pick up the action at the 5-hour, 24-minute mark with the black Oldsmobile number 51 piloted here by George Robinson. We talked at the top of the show about Ford's demise in the class. The Roush team no longer represented, but Oldsmobile certainly seems willing to pick up the torch for the American entries.
It's very good to see that Oldsmobile has expressed interest in racing for quite a few years now, getting a little bit into the GTP classes with light and then full-size cars, going into Trans Am competition. Gentilozzi finally moving the entire team to the GTS class this year, and these are incredibly potent cars.
George Robinson, the leader of the class, as a result of problems for the Nissan of Jeremy Dale. And here's the report on a long pit stop.
Well, Bradley Hand is the crew chief for the number 76 car. You were expecting to change the pads, but it took a lot longer than planned. What happened?
Well, what happened was we had a brake rotor that warped slightly, and when that happens, it caused accelerated brake pad wear. The brake pads were thin enough that when we went to change the brake pads, the pistons that pushed the pads out got cocked slightly because they were so far extended. To move them back is quite difficult when all four of them do that. You have to do them one at a time. We were able to get the right side in pretty good order, but my side I had a little trouble. All four of them were cocked. It took me a little longer than expected. Other than that, everything went well.
They say in motorsports, timing is everything. Don't make your long pit stop with brake problems just before the pace car comes out. Wait for the full course yellow and do it while everybody's running slow. Bad break for the Nissan team there as a full course caution comes out. Here is the source of the caution, the number 67 Camaro of the Florida-based team. Chester Edwards at the wheel. Off course, send the wrecker. But what happens? The wrecker gets stuck in the sand, and so now we need a wrecker for the wrecker. And this could go on and on and on. We'll hope, though, that it doesn't. In the meantime, the full field has been brought under caution. This will tighten up the three lead cars battling for the overall. Take you back earlier in the day. This did not cause a yellow, but this is what happens when your suspension breaks. Another Florida-based team, crab walking down the straightaway. John Annis, Louis Beal, Dick Downs, and Larry Schumacher. These are the guys in the Chevy Lumina, the local short track drivers who came here to try to learn how to turn right. And in this incident, they're going right, left, and every which way, every way but straight, learning a little bit about the sport of road racing on a 40th anniversary celebration here at Sebring.
Well, gentlemen, a quick update on what happened down here in pit lane during the yellow flag. Both of the leading Nissans got a chance to come in and do relatively lengthy pit stops. They were able to change brake pads at a very opportune time about halfway through the race. But the big winner with this yellow flag was the Toyota. He got waved by the pace car and is now on the lead lap. As a result, he came in for a quick splash of fuel and is back out on the race course on the lead lap.
This will put that Toyota not only back in contention for the lead, but also back in sync in terms of pit stops. Everybody has been in to replenish these cars. And, Bill, we could see some pretty heavy-duty action here. You see the two Nissans, the 84 car, driven by the pole sitter, Chip Robinson, up at the head of the class, and back there weaving and warming up the tires, the 83 of his teammate, series champ Jeff Brabham. And it'd be interesting to see, A, if they have at it at all, and B, how quickly the Toyota can catch up, if indeed it can.
Well, it's like a football game. We're entering into the second half of the game now, and this gives a great psychological uplift to the entire Toyota team. They are right back in contention with just that one move.
Green flag as we enter the second half of the event, and Robinson gets a big jump as the traffic shuffle behind finally frees his teammate Brabham. He breaks loose of the crowd and they head off 1-2. It's been a Nissan show pretty much thus far. Back in that pack lurks the Toyota, having gotten the big advantage of that yellow flag. We'll try to catch up. A glimpse there of that red number 30 Porsche, which has been top 5 all day, and a car that I believe Bill Adams said early on that we ought to keep an eye on.
Yes, and I still think we should. Oh, now here's a big story here. This is one of the GTS Nissans that has pulled off the course right after the end of pit lane.
Should be the number 76 car. I think that's Jeremy Dale, is it not?
Right, and he cannot back down the pit lane. Crew can come out. Similar to Davy Jones' incident, the crew can come to the car but are not allowed to do anything on it.
He is nearly 4 miles from home.
Oh, my. What has happened?
Safety officials there to confer with him and determine what to do about this situation and whether or not the car is in fact in a safe spot. They're going to move it out of the way. Steve Millen actually being reported as the driver on that car. And again, they lost a car earlier, the 75 car in which Millen was originally slated to drive. It has gone behind the wall, and so he's paired up in 76 with Jeremy Dale and John Morton, and they have a problem at a most inopportune time. Crew hustling down pit road to try to lend some assistance to a car that has been plagued. You saw the long brake pad stop just before this yellow came out, and now just after the yellow, more trouble for one of the class championship contenders. Up front, Chip Robinson needs this hour in the car. He's got to get in 3 hours for points here, according to IMSA rules, Bill.
Yes, and I don't think that'll really be a problem. At this stage of the race, even should the Toyota come up to challenge Chip seriously, he can afford to let him go a little bit. They're just starting into the second half here. He wants to try and get into a good pace, a nice comfortable rhythm, without stressing either himself or the car. At this point of the day, the color of the racetrack starts to become a problem, that things start to blend in as the sun goes down. There is the number 99 Toyota that we're just seeing coming into the picture with the headlights blazing and behind that 45 light car. You can see he is not far behind the leading Nissans, and I think will come up to a challenging position probably within the next 10 laps.
And he has had to come through virtually the entire field to get there because he was on the tail end of the pack on the restart. So definitely charging here by Andy Wallace, but remember, charging got him in trouble once before today.
And maybe something I should explain to the viewers, that we saw Chip take a tremendous jump off the drop of that green flag. That is perfectly legal to do, and in fact, that's what you want to do. You are entitled to get on the gas as soon as you can, and also the people behind you cannot pass until they see the green flag. So Chip did the smartest thing possible.
Here's a quick quiz for you. Timing chain is reported to be the problem on the number 76 Nissan. And Bill, what was the problem on the number 75?
Timing chain. It's where a valve tries to occupy a space that's already held by a piston, I think.
Weak link for the Nissans appears to be the timing chain. This is the GTO or GTS Nissans, not the GTP cars. P cars run right up front as we take this break. Robinson the leader over Brabham.
Breaks a tackle at the 5, slides into second, rounds the backstretch, dribbles between the legs, shreds the moguls, catches air, skates past center right, serves an ace, connects.
The Suzuki Dual Sport 350S, the ultimate cross trainer.
And what a ride!
The winningest battery in NASCAR isn't a special racing battery. It's exactly the same battery you can buy for your car at Sears. Sears Die Hard, the battery that performs 3 times better than industry standards. Die Hard, more power when you need it most. After all, who's gonna back you better than Sears?
Get on the right track to win a new Chevrolet Lumina Z34. It's the Gillette Halfway Challenge in every live NASCAR Winston Cup race on ESPN this year. If you're 18 or over, you can enter. For 95 cents, call this number before the halfway lap of each race or send your name, address, and phone number to this address by Thursday prior to each race. If you receive the official phone call and name the driver leading at the halfway point, you win the Gillette Halfway Challenge and a new Lumina Z34. Enter soon and watch NASCAR racing on ESPN.
We got it, we got it, we got it, we got it, you got it, you got it, you got it, you got it, we got it, we got it.
If you've got to have it, there's no better time to get it.
We got it, we got it, we got it, you got it, you got it, you got it.
The Suzuki We've Got It flexible financing. Come and get it.
Just past the midway point in this 12-hour grind, let's update the GT Light category. As we noted, the yellow flag at mid-race has tightened up the GTP class. No such tightening of the division of GT Light because the 48 car, now driven by Ruggero Melgrati, is on a lap by himself with Jim Downing's Kudzu Buick a full lap behind, and that's a margin you like to be able to maintain through these yellow flag incidents, Bill.
It is. I think he has to be very pleased by being asked to drive in this Acura. That last year Ruggero campaigned a Ferrari-powered car, similar horsepower to the Acura, and was probably the chief challenger for Parker Johnstone in that series. But this year he is now in the leading Camel Light car. This is the very best car, the best engine, the best tires. It's a perfect package.
And of course they've had a rather star-crossed day here. The car that sat on the pole broke early, and Parker Johnstone, who put that car on the pole, drove this number 48 in the previous shift, and now has turned it back over to Melgrati, and they maintain full command of GT Light. So even though they have lost a car, they remain the dominant force, not only in this race, in this division, but also in terms of the series. They've won both races thus far and appear very likely to do so again, although again it's 6 hours to the finish, and we have already seen one weak link here. The second place car in the division. It's currently driven by Howard Katz, the green colors, the Kudzu Buick. Erie Scientific, the sponsorship on the side of the car, and Jim Downing, the man who brought life to this division, designed it, built it, and has now made a pretty effective customer car program out of this. And today, at least, they will be the primary challenger to the Acura.
And Jim Downing, a longtime Mazda competitor, he has had these cars running through GTU. He, again, as you just alluded to, was really the father of this particular class. I think he fought for it long and hard to try and get this class running along with it, the full prototypes. And it has been, at certain times, extremely successful. Unfortunately, we do have a light field today, but this is something that the Acuras have to be considered with.
GTU leader, still the Leitzinger clan out front. They've got a field day going. David Loring, the current driver of the car. Loring, a veteran of Lights, who's gone to the U division because of the appeal of this Leitzinger operation. Nissan cars that have totally dominated. And look here, the lead Nissans have tightened it up. And the question is, will we see a move for the lead? The 83 car driven by Jeff Brabham, the 84 by Chip Robinson. Robinson driving with a broken rib. Result of an on-course incident at Miami. Has not been on the pace basically all weekend. And earlier in the race, in this same situation, we indeed saw Brabham go right here, if I remember correctly, and take the lead. For the moment, Robinson will hold the mid bag. What do you think? Is Jeff going to charge on by and try to pick up the pace?
I fully expect Jeff will go by. I think Chip is first and foremost concerned with being able to finish this race without making a mistake. He is not 100% healthy enough to challenge Jeff Brabham. Jeff is he's a superb competitor, and I think it takes a combination of an extremely good car and a brilliant driver to beat Jeff at the best of times. Chip right now is suffering, and watch Jeff down the inside here. No, Chip goes in very, very deep, does not allow the senior member of the team to pass him. again, you have made note, there are no team rules here that if one driver can pass another, he's given free rein to do so, as long as there is no contact or no possibility of contact happening. But Chip is running very hard here, and he wants to try and keep at the pace he's on. So if Jeff goes by, he's got to work for it.
We're Icaz Kasner, the team manager, and we have the luxury of speculating from this position. I would want Brabham to go right on by Chip. We know that Chip's a little off the pace because of the injury, but Brabham get to the point and try to get that Toyota back a lap down, because that's the guy that they've got to race. They don't have to race each other.
I would do that too. The one thing at Group 44 that I learned was not really to race between team cars, and it's something that I don't agree with. Even the potential of somebody as good as Chip still existing where he can make a minor mistake, it could possibly take both cars out, and that would be the worst possible scenario. You just don't risk it. There's no need to.
That has happened to this team in the past, on one occasion at least. They worked through slower traffic with Robinson still the leader, and we recall that a year ago in the series finale, the roles were somewhat reversed. It was Jeff Brabham who had the busted up ribs and a whole lot else as a result of that horrendous crash in testing at Road America, and it was really remarkable that the man now driving this car was able to come back and salvage the championship. We have the battle going on for second place in the GTU class, and the colors will be familiar. It is the 95, the Leitzinger team car, currently running currently running third, and second in your picture to that number 0, and that's the Dodge, and that's been the battle. And I would believe that it's Fergus at the wheel right now, although we might double check that. The full-time racing entry, and the Dodge has the upper hand in the moment in that battle for second spot.
Yes, we were speaking earlier off camera. John Fergus, to a lot of you that aren't familiar with the name. Oh, no, there's Neil Hanneman. It is Hanneman driving the car currently. John Fergus, just to finish that thought, is a very, very talented driver, and he is someone that, without question, we'll be hearing a lot more from in the future. He has been spectacular in every class of car he has driven. Was very, very good in the sports class that he ran years ago. Moved to GTO and was instantly a pole position.
Battle for the lead continues. The intramural fight between the Nissans in heavy traffic. Robinson gets around the lap car, and Brabham does not. And so as the Nissans continue to dominate here in the orange groves of Florida, we'll take a break and be right back. So we're glad to have you here for the sports cars. We invite you to stay tuned for the Indy cars. At this juncture, 6 hours, 23 minutes into this 12-hour grind, and we watch the Nissans dominating at the head of the field. And we think about the worldwide situation for these kinds of cars. The World Sports Prototype Championship, by all the reports running through the pits here this weekend, is now a dead issue. There are not enough of these kinds of cars in Europe to create a championship. And Bill, first of all, it harkens back to the jumbled political history that has surrounded this event. This was a world championship race until the early 1970s, and all the big drivers came here, and then the rules changed, and it became basically an American event. The Europeans went off and did things their own way. Their own way hasn't worked out very well. And I guess the question is, what happens now? Do you have any theories on what we might see in the future of world sports car racing?
I think there has been such good acceptance of the World Sports Car Series that we may see an influx of the European teams coming over here, and that would be the best thing possible for IMSA. For these people, for Mercedes, for example, for Peugeot, for some of the European Porsche teams, like, well, Yost, for example, that are overrunning this race right now. For them to come over to join this series could only be the best thing that North American spectators could dream about. There are a lot of people. We ran into a situation today where an old friend who used to be crew chief for the Ford team showed me details of a new car that's coming out, BRM. Now, there's a name from the past for Formula One aficionados. BRM are building a car, or have built a car, for the World Sports Cars that could easily fit into IMSA regulations. This is going to be a 3.5-liter V12 car. It's just spectacular, beautiful, much like the Jaguar that we saw debut at the Miami Grand Prix. For those cars to come over, and Mercedes particularly, what a magical name that would be.
Well, and so too of BRM. I mean, Jackie Stewart got his start in those cars. Jim Clark winning in those cars. So to see that mark here in America will certainly be good news for everyone. The question works the other way, and that is what happens now to Le Mans, because the cars that simply of which there are not enough to have a World Championship Series are also the cars that have made up the field at Le Mans for years. Will there be some effort in your mind to put together a series that might, an event that might provide a lot of these American teams the opportunity to go to Europe, or is it too late for them?
No, I don't think it's too late at all. I've expected for a few years this exact thing would take place. It seems just like such a waste where there are two series of basically similar cars running, and the Europeans don't come here and we don't go to Europe. It would be relatively easy to take that single formula and make it worldwide. Something that would run at Sebring, could also run at Le Mans, at Monza, Italy, and back at Laguna Seca, California. That would be the best possible series. You would get something like Formula One have. They have one particular formula that works worldwide. The same car runs the Grand Prix of Canada as runs at Monte Carlo. These cars running in Europe would be great.
Well, it's ironic that after 10 years of trying to get the two formulae the same, to get the rules disparities eliminated, we finally have that, basically, essentially, and lo and behold, the European Series appears to be belly up. One interesting notion I heard was a 4-race championship that includes Daytona, Le Mans, the 24 hours, and a 24-hour race at Fuji. That would not be bad to see. There is the 99 Toyota to come back to this event, this 12-hour grind that has such a great history. This is the car driven by Andy Wallace that threatened to get up and contend for the lead with the Nissan, but now appears unable to match the pace of the two blue cars up front. He has not been able to close it down and make it a race. He did get back on the lead lap, and so the question now is whether or not he will be able to maintain the pace of the front runners. And let's go back up front to the leaders. Here comes Brabham down to the inside of Chip Robinson. They're coming into that famed Sebring hairpin. He tried that move a little bit ago. This time he makes it work.
Jeff does get by. He must have been hungry, but look at Chip. Chip does not want the pass to be easy, and he's almost trying to get right back.
Found himself trapped behind a lap car there as we go back and check with the Toyota one more time. This car in third in the same lap has got some catching up to do, and look how quickly Brabham begins to pull away from Chip Robinson, having made that pass. I think maybe he wants to go figure out a way to get that Toyota back a lap down. It's all coming to you from Sebring, from the old airport circuit where Alec Ullman discovered. Alec Ullman, by the way, was in the used airplane business. He found this old airfield with a bunch of bombers sitting on it and thought, this would be a great place to run a sports car race. And lo and behold, 42 years later, we're still here and still racing. It is all part of the history of Sebring as the Nissans dominate in 1992. Lead battle continues to be an all-Nissan affair. We made the point that they are seeking their 4th consecutive win as a team, and that would be a record, not for a brand. Porsche ran off a string of something like 13 in a row. Here comes the battle for the lead. They have been in the pits. We've had a driver change on the 83 car. It is now Derek Daly at the controls. Chip Robinson was also on pit road, made a pit stop, but stayed in the car, getting in the hour that he needs to qualify for points. He driving with a broken rib here today, and it looks like they're going to continue to swap the lead. Let's see if he'll make the move here. Nope, not right there, but are they close? And he is going to try to get inside. Man, that's tight racing.
These guys are driving like they don't like it. Look at the rubber that's being left off that tire. He's putting down huge strips of rubber side by side up the straight. All right,
sandwich the lapper, and Robinson's got him covered, I believe. Robinson Nationals. Tell you what, that is quite a show, and a tremendous show of confidence in the two drivers. You've commented time and again that it's scary to have them running that close together.
It is. I mean, even from a potential team manager standpoint, to watch this take place is very nerve-wracking.
Let's see what we can find out about the Nissan strategy. Rick DeBrule is standing by in the leader's pit.
Well, Kaz Kasner is the Nissan Motorsports manager. He has his own personal skybox, we'll call it, here on pit lane. And let's talk about the strategy. Is there a team strategy? Is there a concern about having these two guys going head-to-head?
No, there's not any concern with them going head-to-head. I mean, they've done it for several years now, so we're not concerned about that part. Winning the race is always a concern.
Is there a nighttime strategy? Do you change the strategy as it gets darker?
No, all of them are very, very good at night. That's, in fact, we were pretty darn quick and very, very pleased about the nighttime. So it looks like it's clear. It doesn't look like there's any rain, so I don't see any problem with it.
But there's no orders on who does what. Will that change during the race?
No, don't expect it to. Win the race if you can.
Well, that is the confidence that engenders the kind of action that we've seen here thus far. Let me elaborate a little on just what we mean by consecutive victories for a team. NTPI, the Nissan Performance Technologies team based here in the States, going for their 4th victory. 2 others have won 3 in a row, beginning with Briggs Cunningham, who in fact won the race 3 times in a row, 1953, 54, and 55, with 3 different cars, a Cunningham, an Oscar, and finally a Jaguar. And here, of course, it has been all these potent Nissans in the last 3 years, and thus the sign we mentioned earlier, anybody but Nissan, and the natives are restless, looking for someone new to win this race. But I certainly have a sense that barring something dramatic, Nissan may be headed for the record book here.
Well, it does show a lot of confidence in the cars when these drivers are allowed to literally flog them. A little point, too. You can see on the roof of the 84 car, it's a white light. When you get a chance to look at the number 83 car, you'll notice it's a red light. And what this does is to make the job of the crew chief easier at night. When these cars come out of this final turn and come up this straight, as they're approaching, the crew chief may have 500,000 candle power staring him in the face. He can't tell which car is which, but by looking up at the roof, the light will show that, yes, he is looking at whichever particular car he wants.
We get glimpses of the number 99 Toyota. The pit stop exchange to which we referred at the beginning of the segment, the one that put Derek Daly in the car, also saw the Toyota come on pit road, and it was an extended stop. So while the Toyota is still on the lead lap, Juan Manuel Fangio has now fallen into the clutches of the leader, Chip Robinson, and is in danger of going a lap down once again. So he's got to hustle.
He could very easily. And what we expect may have taken place is for a brake pad change. These cars run different brake rotors than they would for a sprint race. Now, in a sprint race, you get a rotor that's actually drilled, a series of holes and very defined patterns on the rotor itself for heat dissipation. For an endurance race like this, you want as much material as possible on the rotor, and it makes your braking distances go up slightly, but at least you're not worried about the rotor wearing out before the end of the race. The downside, you have to run a slightly softer pad for this, and as a result, you may change 2 or 3 times the sets of pads on the car. So maybe Toyota went through a pad change, but if indeed they did, they have done it past the halfway point and can now go the rest of the race on those pads.
Robinson will be attempting here to put another lap on the number 30 Porsche, which continues to soldier on. The Moretti, Segala, and Larari Yost entry. That's the red car, about to fall. I believe that's going to be 6 laps behind, so it would certainly take some major misfortune for the Japanese teams out front to allow the Germans to extend their remarkable record here at Sebring. By far and away the all-time winner in terms of makes, the Porsche. But here is the number 99 Toyota, and there you see next in line the 84 Nissan, definitely closing up and trying to put that car a lap down, and I'm sure there's no doubt about that strategy. Let's get those guys on a lap of their own.
Definitely. He would have been advised that Toyota was just ahead and would be told by the crew, go ahead and pass him. Stretch the car a little bit if you have to, but pass the Toyota. Because if a pace car were to come out again at this point, the Toyota could make up that entire lap and get right back on the tail of the field. Whereas if he gets past him, that's it. He's down 1 lap and has to stay there.
The opposite happened, of course, not long ago. Previous full course yellow worked to the advantage of the Toyota as they were able to make up an entire lap basically for free. But the long pit stop has put them in danger of going a lap down once again. The 2 Nissans and the Toyota are all on the lead lap and are the 3 contenders to win this 40th running of the Sebring race. We should clarify one other point. If you're paying close attention, you may have noticed that we're talking 40 years of history, and yet the first race here was in 1950. First race was not a 12-hour race. The race was born as a 6-hour event, won by a Crosley hotshot in one of the more bizarre sports car upsets perhaps of all time. They had an unusual performance index by which they measured the winning car, and the hotshot proved to be the winning formula, beat a Ferrari that day, and perhaps the only time in sports car history that has happened. The actual 12-hour event was first run in 1952 and thus celebrates its 40th anniversary. In traffic, Robinson sets his sights on what was the fastest car in qualifying, the number 99 Toyota, piloted by Juan Manuel Fangio. nephew of a two-time winner here in this sports car classic. So great names continue to have a heritage here, certainly in Fangio and Brabham, all three of the Brabham brothers here. I expect Sir Jack is taking more than passing interest in the outcome.
Yeah, I'm sure he has to share a certain smile just to see all of his sons doing so well and following, not necessarily in his footsteps like in the Formula One ranks, but certainly they are all very good drivers.
The number 48 car Soldier's on in the Camel Lights division. Bit of smoke there as he works his way past a lapped automobile. And this car is now being shared by all of the Acura drivers as the 49 car, Parker Johnstone's pole-sitting entry, has gone behind the wall. Rogero Malgrati at the wheel at the moment. Howard Katz driving one of the Kudzus in second spot, and Fermin Velez, who had a spirited battle with the Acura in the early running, has settled into third spot after a variety of problems. So for the moment, it is another Acura runaway. And while we're updating classes, let's go back and look at the Exxon sedan division and see who the front runner is there. We expect to see the Oldsmobile heave into view. Indeed, there. No, indeed. There is the Acura behind it, one of the Dodge entries. Oldsmobile in a great battle here today, and Gentilozzi's operation appears solidly in control of the class for the moment. The Dodge, as you predicted, has not been able to maintain the pace because of the horsepower disadvantage on the long straightaways here. This Oldsmobile team, Oldsmobile has obviously become very, very serious about a lot of different divisions of motorsports and now focusing on road racing.
They certainly have. Darren Brasfield, who has been a multi-talented driver through the past years, everything from GT prototypes to NASCAR. Darren is currently in the car today and leading the class.
Paul Gentilozzi runs the team and drives and is in second spot, and the Nissan today settling for third behind the two Oldsmobiles at this juncture. Still a lot of racing to go, and much of it at night. Up front, battle for the lead. Well, not really a battle for the lead, but the leader trying to battle and put the Toyota a lap behind as the action heads into the dark here at Sebring. Stay with us. The complexion of endurance races always changes at nightfall. The contact 12 hours of Sebring, the 40th renewal of this race. Darkness definitely descending on the Nissan team. The leader of the race is Derek Daly, but he is in a lap all by himself in terms of his teammate not being there anymore. His teammate has gone to the sidelines, and we'll have more on that in a moment. Right now, Daly out front is pursued by the Toyota in second spot, and they are indeed on the lead lap. Derek Daly chased by this man, Juan Manuel Fangio, second place and on the lead lap. And great reason to speculate about the health of the leading Nissan based on what we've seen develop here. Just as the sun begins to settle in the west over Sebring, the 8-hour mark has come and gone, and with 4 long and grueling hours remaining, the question is, what is up with Nissan? Let's go back and recap what has happened for you here at the 8-hour mark. The 84 car, Chip Robinson, the pole-sitting driver in this race, having just turned it over to Bob Earl. See the stream behind the left rear wheel and watch the spin coming out of the corner. Obviously no traction, and that oil had to come from somewhere.
Well, he has a real problem in this motor. Look at the steam coming out here. Bob was very lucky at this point. Almost got T-boned by a couple of vehicles.
He'll manage to get that car back out on course without further incident. Let's go down to Rick DeBrule and find out the source of the problem.
Well, Bob Earl, you only got a couple of laps in the car. What was the problem?
Well, initially when I went out, everything seemed fine. You know, these cars always run like trains for us all the time, so you have a lot of confidence. And I went out and I went into the fast asses on my second or third lap, and I just had a quick snap spin and ended up on the dirt. And I said, whoa, this isn't normal. And the engine stalled, so I fired it back up again, and the pressure came up. So I figured the left rear wheel had come loose or something. So I started crawling back to the pits real slow, and as I was driving real slow, I spun again. And then the oil pressure started to drop, so I drove it back. There's nothing I could have done out there. I had to get it back to the pits, so I kept the engine running through the sweeper on the back straightaway and coasted into the pits, and they said an oil line is cracked or something, probably just because the circuit's so bumpy.
Is it fixable?
The oil pipe is, but I don't think the motor is. I think it ran out of oil.
At that, of course, is terminal, and that takes out one of the two front-running Nissans. One of its potential challengers also going by the wayside, Frank Jelinski at the wheel of the Yost Porsche when that white smoke erupts.
That is a death knell for the Porsche motor. A piston has gone in one of the cylinder banks. He is out of the race.
So, another contender goes by the boards, and this car becomes an interesting issue. Massimo Segala now some 6 laps behind, but in front of him, the leaders are rapidly falling by the wayside. Might this be yet another Porsche victory at Sebring? I'll tell you what, that would be a remarkable achievement, but Segala, for the moment, presses on, hoping that this attrition at the head of the field here at Sunset might continue. These cars have won more races at Sebring than any other mark by a vast margin, a huge margin. Porsche has long been the dominant brand. Most consecutive wins by make. Porsche with 13 wins in a row here in one sequence. But again, that's ancient history. 1984, we recall the 935 came out of a museum and actually came here and won the race. And that was also a Yost entry. So Yost know how to win this race. Now we go back and pick up one of the back markers here as the night begins to fall. The nature, the character of this racetrack changes dramatically, Bill.
And something that could come into play perhaps for that Momo Porsche, they're only running with a single headlight. In itself, that is not a problem right now. You can see that they have just been passed by the #2 Jaguar. Remember that Jaguar that we thought, well, they're just out of the race because Davey had that wheel problem? Suddenly, they are not that far out any longer. The leading car is not totally healthy. The Toyota, seemingly healthy right now, but we're at Sebring, anything can happen. And yet here's this Jaguar soldiering on around the track.
One Toyota has already fallen out, went out very early in the race, so the second team car, Fangio, now at the wheel, was left to press on alone. The Jag, the lone entry here, a car that was never intended to win this race, came here just to finish and gather some points for driver and series point leader Davy Jones. Now finds that every one of those lead cars going behind the wall is just another handful of points that he can put in his pocket, and the possibility of the overall win certainly must begin to glimmer along with the headlights for these guys, because you have essentially the Toyota, which is still fast and healthy up front, but the somewhat questionable second Nissan, and we'll get back to that story before the end of this segment, because that car has definitely been showing some smoke. The leading Oldsmobile in the GTS division, the number 51 car, shared by Darren Brassfield, George Robinson, and Paul Gentilozzi, and they're gearing up for the nightfall here. They're getting the lights on, but they too are a lone entry now. Came here as a 2-car team, but they too are down to 1. The retirement not long ago, and here we'll see it. Clearly a blown engine, as Gentilozzi brought that car on pit road, and that smoke too proved to be terminal. So with a third of the race still remaining, attrition at sundown, definitely the story, and it seems odd and ironic somehow that it all happened right in this particular segment of the race. We go on to the GTU competition, and here, nice shot, Leitzinger family with no problems whatsoever. 96 and 95 shared by the Leitzinger clan. These are the Nissans. David Loring, Chuck Kurtz, Butch Leitzinger, all sharing in the driving responsibilities. But that division also has seen its share of attrition here, not affecting the front-running Nissan duo, but rather one of the Dodge Daytonas that hope to challenge for the victory here.
The number 0 car right here was definitely the strongest challenger, and it's getting pushed down pit lane. Had a number of problems. Obviously is not running well. Here is what happened to this car earlier. We can see just a trip through the tulips.
I'd define that as a problem.
Sand blowing every place.
Back on course, and that was what prompted the lengthy pit stop that has added a bit of pad to the margin shared by the Nissans that are the front runners in the GTU division. But Dan Walker, John Fergus, Bobby Aiken, and Neil Heineman will press on in the Dodge. Now we're back with the lead car, and you've been seeing some smoke. Is this just your imagination because we saw that 84 car go out? Is that car really smoking?
Yeah, it is starting to smoke. Now, initially, we did see a little bit of black smoke, which I explained is part of this computer system that allows the turbocharged engine to run rich at certain points. But when you watch the car come into certain corners on the track, we are seeing a different color smoke. This is a whitish blue color. That's an oil smoke. Completely different than the black smoke we saw before. It does not look particularly good for the Nissan at this point. It is not the perfect car we thought it was.
We have also seen a couple of bobbles by the driver in the course of these recent laps. Derek Daly is at the wheel now, and you always begin to speculate that perhaps a mechanical problem is forcing him to compensate in ways that he does not like. And so, as the sun sets slowly in the west, Daly continues to lead, and we'll be back with more. Nightfall at the 40th anniversary running of this great race, the Contact. 12 hours of Sebring, brought to you by Acura. And as night fell, well, if we've learned anything in 40 years at this place, it is that the darkness brings out the gremlins. Derek Daly brought the Nissan onto pit road leading. Derek Daly's last drive as a professional racer. The Irishman who has come to America, won the hearts of American fans, wrapping up his career, bringing the car on pit road in the lead. But the lights would not work, and the problem that Daly anticipated as he drove his final laps proved to be more serious than he was able to anticipate. A change in the nose, and still 800 horsepower, but not a single candle power to light the way to a record-setting fourth victory. And so into the lead goes the number 99 Toyota, Juan Manuel Fangio, the nephew of the two-time winner, the legendary Juan Fangio, taking over the advantage here and building what would become a 5-lap lead. A bittersweet moment for Derek Daly on pit road as he was joined by our Marty Reed to talk about the problem.
Derek Daly, your last driving stint behind the wheel, you bring it in first place. Your thoughts?
It was good until I came down the pit lane and realized that maybe the light problem is worse than we thought, because we thought we could just change the nose and continue on, but we're laps down now, so it's going to be difficult from here on in.
Bittersweet because you bring it in first place and watch it drift away?
Well, yeah, I enjoyed it. I had a little personal game with myself to try and get to a level of consistency and speed, which I felt I was doing. I was very happy in the car, and you know, sometimes it doesn't all fall your way.
It's not over yet.
Where did your voice go?
The same place your headlights went.
I hope we get ours back quicker.
Great line, Marty Reed. And I'll tell you, we're going to miss Derek Daly. We're also going to hustle right up pit road to the Camel Lights leader. We'll send Marty to find out what's happening here. Bill, with these high-tech cars, the days when you could file the points with a matchbook cover and get them fired up again are long gone. Electrical problems.
Unfortunately, in situations like this, they are gone. Here is another situation where the terrible track of Sebring takes a toll on a high-tech vehicle. The pounding not only takes place in the suspension and to the drivers, but every wire on the car.
Car goes back out onto the racetrack, no longer the leader in the class, and so the peripatetic Marty Reed caught up with Parker Johnstone to find out the story.
Parker, 3 laps, 3 pit stops, major problems.
That's right. We've got some sort of a electrical gremlin that's attacking the Acura BF Goodrich Comtech car, and we're trying to put this one away for Chris Mellon, our crew chief, who's just gotten out of the hospital back home. And we thought that this car was running flawless, and we thought we could get it to the checkered flag, and something mysteriously occurred when Rogerio Melgrati and I made our last pit stop. So we're changing ECUs and igniters, and we've tried changing headlights, taillights, you name it. But we've got some sort of gremlin that's attacked the old Acura, and the motor's still running great. We just can't get everything else to work, so we're working on it as fast as we can.
Up the pit road, meanwhile, routine stop for the Jag team. A little cleaning, a little maintenance on the near side. As you can see, rubber being cleaned out of the oil cooler there to keep that car cool. For Davy Jones, 4th place, albeit 18, 19 laps down at this point, is not all bad. He's the point leader. He knew he wasn't going to win the race. To get out of here with any points and preserve that lead was the objective, and it's clearly attainable. Toyota's night not trouble-free. A change of noses here, but the key thing is a 5-lap lead inherited when the leading Nissan went on pit road. could not get the lights to fix. That endless pit stop has given Dan Gurney the opportunity to win this race. His team leads by 5 laps. We'll be back to see if they can hang on and dodge all the bullets waiting out there as Juan Manuel Fangio leads the 12 Hours of Sebring. We're back at Sebring for the finish of the Contact 12 Hours of Sebring, brought to you by Acura, and it appears that Toyota will race into the record book. Juan Manuel Fangio II and Andy Wallace leading the race. The GTS leader is an Oldsmobile. That will be a first. GTU leader is the Loringen Leitzinger bunch, and they will dominate that class. We'll have the entire story of the finish here. First, let me remind you quickly that the baseball season is ready to roll. Tomorrow, the Blue Jays and the Red Sox have at it at 1 o'clock Eastern time. Preseason action here heading down toward opening day here on ESPN, which will be on April the 6th. So tune in for all the baseball action tomorrow afternoon. Tonight, at the end of 11 hours and some 55 minutes of racing, the leader roaring through the darkness in what is truly a psychedelic display of sports car racing, the Toyota of Dan Gurney, an American sports car legend in his own right, the winner of the race here in 1959, and now the owner of the team, which just 6 weeks ago finished its first endurance race at Daytona and now appears almost certain to win. And I got to feel that this is going to be a very emotional moment for Gurney and all the members of his team.
I'm sure it is, as we're watching the car just coming up to start its final lap. What looked like was going to be a disastrous day turned out to be a great day. To lose a car so early in the program, where on the lap 2 or 3 the Jones car went out with engine problems, and then to be, I think, staggered up against this mighty onslaught of the Nissan team. Cars that were proven winners, very, very strong cars. They had an incredible challenge, and here it is. Their car has lasted through. The Nissans have faltered.
And now we confirm that the car is in its next to last lap. Remember, this race started late because of a little patching that they had to do on the racetrack. Green flag fell at 10:19, and thus 12 hours later, the checker will fall at 12:19 at the completion of the next lap thereafter, in fact. And so from here, the Toyota can literally coast home. So many times we've seen the complexion of this race change dramatically in the final hour. No one knows that better than Gurney, who in fact lost it here 100 yards from the finish when his car quit, pushed it across the finish line, and for that was disqualified. And one of the fascinating stories of Sebring's history, the long 40-year tradition of sports car racing. And as you can see, a difficult test for the drivers in that final 3 hours. This place is pitch black, and save for your headlights, there's simply nothing to guide the way. In fact, what light there is very confusing.
It sometimes can be confusing. What happens is that occasionally in the dark, because of fatigue, because of a number of things, you can pass a vehicle, and if you lose concentration for a fraction, all of a sudden that vehicle's headlights come in your mirror, and you're not sure if it's somebody trying to lap you. You don't know if it's a car you just passed. Frequently can get you disoriented. It can be very dangerous and very frightening.
There are great stories in the old days of the broad expanse of runway out here of cars coming at you the wrong direction down the runway at full race speed. Guys go out there and literally get lost. We have a report that the surviving Nissan, the 83, now driven by Derek Daly, may be headed for the pits on 3 wheels. So apparently there has been one last misfortune for Daly, whose career, indeed, his racing career will end on a rather unfortunate note here. He was in that car, as we saw a few minutes ago, when the lights would not come on, and that cost that team the opportunity to win this race. The leaders are in the final lap. Juan Manuel Fangio performing magnificently here, setting the fastest qualifying lap, and until very late in the event, the fastest race lap. And then Jeff Brabham took that honor away, as we should note, in the final hour here, the Nissan actually carved 3 laps off the margin and appeared to at least be in position to make it close. But now the last-minute report that Nissan, which Brabham has handed off to Derek Daly to take the checkered flag, is in trouble once again and is headed for the pits on 3 wheels. So it will be a comparatively easy victory by Sebring standards for the Toyota. And just remarkable when you think about the technology that's at work there. Next time you go to the supermarket to buy your favorite soft drink, look for the 2-liter bottle. Think of the fact that that is the capacity of this engine and that it makes 750 horsepower. I find that amazing.
It is amazing, and I think to have an engine that small, putting out this horsepower, lasting through this sort of abuse is doubly impressive. They have just done a wonderful job. They proved at Daytona that the engine did have the durability, and now here they have proven their chassis can last as well. So I think this may be a word of warning for the other competitors that Toyota's here.
It is a coming of age for one of the comparatively new teams in IMSA racing. We recall the long struggle of Nissan to find its way to victory lane, and now in comparatively short order in endurance racing, Toyota turns for home. Juan Manuel Fangio heads for the checkered flag and has won the 40th running of the 12 Hours of Sebring. And there is Dan Gurney, Andy Wallace, the co-driver. What a moment of celebration.
Dan Gurney, this has got to be a great feeling. You won back here back in 1959, but this is the first victory for the team, the first endurance victory. That's got to feel good.
What a team. And what a driver won is. It's just, I have to say the Nissan guys tried awfully hard, and we're very proud to beat them. Very proud.
Back in 1966, you lost in those final minutes. Are the doubts going through your mind?
Oh, plenty of doubts, of course. Not now, but then there were.
But the victory's yours to savor.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Rick.
An emotional moment for an American hero. Dan Gurney's team has prevailed at Sebring. We'll be back to meet the winners right after this. We're back in Sebring, Florida. The 40th running of the 12-hour is history. Pandemonium in Victory Lane. Victory is always emotional. This one has certainly been something special, as Fangio has won it for Toyota over Derek Daly, retiring from racing. The Porsches come home third, Davy Jones in the Jag in fourth, and Jim Downing fifth in the lights car. What a day.
Well, I too am in agreement with that. I think it's particularly sweet. You always like to see your heroes win. And Dan Gurney is the perfect American hero. He has done everything.
And what a humble man he is in victory. And now Juan Manuel Fangio coming out of the car. Let's go to Marty Reed and meet the winner of this 40th Anniversary Classic.
Juan, Andy, congratulations. I know you can barely hear me, but listen, you guys never finished better than 9th here. How do you feel right now?
We feel great. I'm sure Andy feels great also. I mean, it's fantastic. It's a 24 hours, 12 hours for me to win. Andy was winning already other long distance races, but I mean, it's absolutely amazing, great.
The little 2-liter that could. Congratulations, guys. Let's go to Rick DeBrule.
Oh, Jim Downing, you had the little engine that could today. You just kept chugging away and finally won.
Well, yes, we did. Our kudzu chassis has finally proved itself here, and we had a 1-2 finish with Charles Morgan's car, I guess, 2 kudzus out of 3 in the field, and it's been a thrill. Tim McAdam and Howard Katz, my co-drivers, did a hell of a job to get us all here, and my crew chief, P.J. Cook, our engineer, Sam Garrett, and the guys on the team just did a hell of a job.
Less renowned, perhaps, than Dan Gurney or Juan Manuel Fangio, Jim Downing is nonetheless recognized as one of the class acts in this game, and he defeats his own car here, as he notes, as Morgan comes home second, another kudzu. Parker Johnstone, with mechanical problems, settles for third. Mel Butt and Andy Evans rounding out the top 5 in the lights race, and a good competitive battle with a heartwarming outcome there.
Well, it turned out to be quite spectacular, and I think once again Jim Downing has added a little fuel to the fires in the engine competition in this light classification, and arguably the Mazda may be the finest endurance motor ever built. They're not only fun to drive on the street, but these things just don't break.
Downing returns to victory lane for the 3rd time here. Won the GTU class in 1980 and scores his 2nd win here in lights. We'll be back with more of the winners of this 40th Sebring Classic as we wrap up the story of what has truly been a monumental day of racing. The celebrations continue. Oldsmobile, like Toyota, scoring its first endurance win here. Irv Hare getting credit for the win in GTS over Jeremy Dale, the rivals with Nissan. Daniel Euretia and Richard McDill and Gary Smith will round out the top 5. And really a remarkable performance for another new team in IMSA. You've got to give Oldsmobile a lot of credit for the rapid emergence of their outfit.
Yes, Paul Gentilozzi and all the fellows have done a wonderful job here. And I think today we have seen cubic inches of American horsepower beat cubic dollars of Nissan.
The Oldsmobiles will pick up the gauntlet that Ford basically left laying there and continue an American tradition in big bore sedans. Let's hear from the guys who won the race as we go back to Marty Reed.
GTS victory. It was a big crew right here. We got Paul Gentilozzi, Irv Hare, Darren Brassfield, George Robinson, all part of the victory. And this has to feel great, beating that Nissan juggernaut.
Well, we knew they'd be really tough. And for an Oldsmobile, the first endurance win for Oldsmobile, the first for Olivetti and BF Goodrich in the GTS series. It was 12 hours of forever.
12 hours of forever. It was a great finish. Let's go to Marty Reed with the GTU victors.
David Loring, 3 years in a row. You own this racetrack.
Well, I wouldn't say I own it, but it sure is good to be here again.
Did you miss a beat at all?
Yeah, we had a problem with about an hour left in the race. We had a blowout, took out the cooler line, and we lost our oil temperature gauge. It just went around and around and around, but the car ran great, and the team did a fabulous job.
John Paul Jr., first time you've won since 1982 here, right?
Been a long time, and I'm really happy to be here.
Well, congratulations, guys. Great victory.
Thank you very much.
Bob Leitzinger's cars come home 1-2 in the GTU division as Loring and Leitzinger appear on the scoreboard. Dick Greer, Joe Cogbill, and Bill Sargas round out the top 5. Marty Reed's voice is remarkable in its endurance. It survived the 12 hours. Sedan racing was pretty good.
It was really excellent, and I think a lot of credit has to go to the Leitzinger operation. They are facing some formidable competition with the Mazda, of course, that we just alluded to as being so durable, and of course the Chrysler, the factory entry that was driven so quickly for so long.
Of course, Nissan still the juggernaut in the Exxon Supreme divisions, contending but not winning in GTO, in the GTS, formerly GTO, and dominating in GTU. We're going to come back and wrap up the entire field here, give you an idea down deeper in the field how they've finished as we wrap up our coverage at the end of the 4th decade of history here, the Contact 12 Hours of Sebring. ESPN Speed World's coverage of the 12 Hours of Sebring has been brought to you by Acura Automobiles. Experience precision-crafted performance. And by today's Contact, 12 hours stronger than your miserable cold. Well, it is all over, and Toyota has won it. Juan Manuel Fangio II brings home the victory in GTP for Dan Gurney's Toyota team with Andy Wallace co-driving. Derek Daly wraps up his racing career quite successfully with a runner-up finish here for Nissan after a troubled day for that team that was seeking its 4th straight win here. Great run for Porsche. Give them credit coming home with a 3rd place finish. We'll run you down deeper into the field. There's the Irv Hare entry coming home with that 7th place overall, and then the Loring Leitzinger GTU cars finishing 8th and 9th. B.J. Jones came back to 10th after that spectacular beginning that served notice that Toyota might very well be a team to deal with. And we'll run you down through the entire field here as we turn our attention to Bill Adam and your final thoughts on what we've seen here today. It has truly been a fascinating race at every level.
It is an incredible place, and I think the mystique of Sebring it continues to grow. Teams like Jaguar, like Toyota, that initially suffered problems near the start of the race and looked like they were just totally out of the picture, ended up doing very, very well. Teams that did look very strong at the start, the Nissan particularly, they faltered in the long run. You never know what is going to happen at this track. It throws so many curves at you. It changes everything.
The unpredictability is part of the tradition and I guess part of the lore of Sebring. The one thing we did not see was the dramatic reversal in the final hour. Once the Nissan had that final problem, and how ironic it seems that the problem was that the lights simply wouldn't come on.
Yes.
Once that problem occurred, it was Toyota's race to win, and they did not falter, and that was the key.
Although I'm sure Dan Gurney thought more than once about the possibilities of something rearing its head to bite them. You never know. There have been so many instances in the past where a turbo will fail with a few laps to go, or something goes wrong. You always worry because of the pounding the car and the driver takes.
With the rough racetrack being so much a part of the tradition here, truly every mechanical component is tested to the maximum at Sebring, and we saw the failures that ultimately determined the outcome here. The Nissan string has ended, and Toyota has begun perhaps a string of its own here. All in all, a remarkable day and night of competition, and our genuine